Anyway, so the topic today, as some of you might have known who are in the UK, the Your Party UK has had another hiccup, perhaps has self-aborted. We don't know. Well, we have our opinion. Some people are still keeping hope alive and are sure that they will persevere by hook or crook because fascism is coming and Corbyn and the Sultanistas are our only hope. Similar divide is playing out in the States and probably other countries as well. So before I bring up my guests, I'm going to introduce the metaphor that, at least my extended metaphor, and if those of you who've been looking at the kind of bit of taking of the piss I've been having with those who are quite, I with love, who are very caught up in the Your Party movement, or, well, I'll just say Your Party. Is this post-mortem of either, and I was thinking, is it a stillbirth or was it a hysterical pregnancy? And for those of you who don't know, a hysterical pregnancy is when someone thinks they're pregnant or so convinced that they're pregnant that their body actually starts looking like they're pregnant. So they'll start to get the belly and the breast. It can even happen to men. So there you go, trans ladies. Anyway, so we'll be the judge of that. And I just want to say a bit about that metaphor. And then I'm going to bring up our guests and we'll get the show on the road. So again, we're turning our attention tonight to the so-called Your Party, the latest attempt, I would say, to revive Corbinism or social democracy in the UK, outside the labor machine. So it's been branded as a new force, a fresh start, a break from Starmer's hollowed out labor. But if we look closely, what we see isn't the birth of something new. I argue we see a stillbirth or maybe even hysterical pregnancy. Again, a morbid symptom, another morbid symptom of the left. So this metaphor is deliberate, and I know it can be difficult for people. And if anybody who's watching who has had a stillbirth, I apologize. I mean it in the metaphorical sense, obviously. So a stillbirth means something has gone through the motions of development. It shows signs of life. It excites expectations, but then it arrives dead, stillborn. It didn't make it out. It cannot live for some reason. So Your Party emerged with a massive online enthusiasm, as I recall. So tens of thousands signing up in hours after Zara Sultana broke with the Labour Party and announced that her and Jeremy Corbyn were going to be, the new face or the new left, new old left, old new left. I don't know. Maybe Alex can and Laura can shed some light on that. Yet the embryo, let's see, I'm going to check the private chat to make sure people can hear me. Okay, good. It's always a bummer if you think people can hear you and then you realize you've been talking into the void. Anyway, where was I with my extended metaphor? So, and then with, what was it, 800,000 or 400,000 people registered their enthusiasm for this new political venture. Yet the embryo was malformed from the outset, I would argue. Instead of developing the organs of class politics, it's inherited the same congenital defects that plagued Corbynism the first time and plague the Labour Party still to this day, etc., which we will get into more later when we look at both the internal contradictions that have killed this in the womb, so to speak, as well as the external forces that make it an odd vehicle to pin all our hopes on, or even some of our hopes on. So we can look at the symptoms. Internal factionalism before it even exists as a party. So, and then Zara Sultana is launching an unauthorized membership drive. Corbyn and allies denouncing it as illegitimate, and then Sultana suddenly, when it works for her, she knows perfectly well who a woman is and decried the old boys club or the sexist boys club. I guess she just assumed they're all boys or men. We'll have to, maybe she can clarify that later if she was misgendering them. But I digress. So, accusing them of sexism, legal disputes, and all kinds of things. A party at war with itself before it's even born, before it's even had its first, I guess it'd be party conference where they have to hash out things like what the party's about and its policies and leadership and decision-making process and all that stuff. And if you look at the ideological DNA, Zionism remains quite a problem. And I wanted to share a bit of Alexander's and Kip Clarenberg's interview with Professor Miller yesterday. I want to say David Miller, but it could be Daniel. Anyway, Professor Miller, who went into with quite a bit of detail the kind of cast of there's a lot of, basically there's a lot of so-called liberal Zionists, that's still a thing, in and around, especially the Corbyn wing or faction of that party, and also various state operatives and security, intelligence people and whatnot. So I would encourage all of you to go check out On Decline and Fall, and I'll put the details of that later in the video thing. And I will ask Alexander his thoughts now that probably a day has passed on what David, or I'll just say Professor Miller, brought to the table to understand some of the things that are causing problems that may not far beyond membership squabbles and pronouns and a variety of other things. So, and then of course, good old Sultana, we have the gender ideology. So that she's still with the trans woman or woman, and apparently was told anybody who doesn't agree with that or isn't willing or really excited about foregrounding that has no place in your party. So your party with an asterisk. So yes, and then so you have the party is emerged in name. There's a feeling, there's a vibe, there's a mailing list, but it has not made it to term, and I don't think it will make it to term. And if it does, it'll be some sort of kind of, I don't know, undead, old wine, new old wine, not even old wine, slightly older, slightly younger bottle type of thing. Nothing new, certainly nothing that can rise to the occasion. But anyway, so the question is, what then after we get through we're going to go through some of the details. So actually what happened and why, both the internal divisions and the broader political climate and economic climate. And then we'll want to get into what this tells us. Yeah. So what can we learn from this hysterical political party or stillbirth? So it's not just about your party or even just or just about British. There's a left in general that I think this is just one in a long line, the latest line of a morbid symptom that is telling us, those of us who belong to this thing, whatever it is called the left, that what we've been doing isn't working. And perhaps there's things that we're cramming together that ought not to be, and that we keep on crashing on the same waves, the same rocks over and over again. Maybe one day we'll figure it out. But to help me dissect that, I'm going to bring on Laura and Alexander to the stage here, hopefully. Yes, at the stage. Hello? Can you hear me? Oh, I can't hear you. I can see you, but I can't hear you. It says muted now. Anyway, hi.
How's that?
Oh, yay! I was thinking, could we go 3 for 3? Anyway, welcome. Thank you for joining me. I have kicked my family out of the living room so I can be very close to the internet for this very special episode. So hopefully my logic is true, that the closer I am to the router, the better the internet, but we'll see. Anyway, Alexander, welcome. Please, if you could just please, I think you've been on Morbid Symptoms season 1 quite a few times, but if you could just tell, just for the record, who you are and about your institute and the political party that you are a part of.
Well, thanks, Tara. Obviously, I was delighted to join you for season 1, and here we are for season 2, the difficult second album, or maybe the triumphant sequel. I'm not sure. I run a couple of YouTube channels. One is my own, which is Marx Engels Lenin Institute, which is dedicated to providing like a Marxist analysis both of current affairs and carrying out a certain degree of political education, with now going to be more of an emphasis on the political education side going forward, because a lot of the analysis of current events is going into the other project I'm part of, which is the Decline and Fall show, which I co-present each week with the well-known independent journalist who writes a lot for the Grey Zone and the Cradle, Kit Clarenberg, currently exiled in Serbia due to British state repression, I think is the correct way of putting that. And that goes out 1 or 2 times a week, though we have a series of very interesting specials coming up there, which I will shamelessly plug. And the overall aim of everything that I do is to try and make clear to people like exactly what they are dealing with when it comes to especially being a communist in an imperial state, in imperialist power. So that applies to Britain, that applies to the United States, the G7 nations, basically, because I think what we're going to be talking about tonight is that so many people don't understand what they're dealing with. And I think that your party is a very eloquent testimony to the fact that so many people don't understand the system that they're in and don't understand how to get out of it. And therefore, that's why they are stuck. But I won't run too far ahead there, Tara.
Great, thank you. And Laura Jones, Miss Jones, is a friend of mine. Anyway, hi, Laura.
Hi, Tara. Thanks for having me back.
Oh, thanks for coming back. Laura Jones is has also joined me several times, and yeah, I'll let you also go ahead and say what you want to say about your activities, and I'm sure you'll mention the ongoing push to get women and kids out of mixed sex emergency housing.
Yeah, so that's my obsession currently, and up until this point, I don't think I've been doing a good enough job of updating people about what's happening with the campaign. So I'm going to have a Substack hopefully as of next week, where I'm going to put up regular updates every time we meet with politicians, every time there's an event or new statistics come out, etc. I want to put it all up there so that people have somewhere that they can check, because other than a few news stories and my Twitter account where I go on about other stuff aside from the campaign, there isn't really anywhere for people to check that. So I can't share a link just now, but I will.
We'll keep a lookout for it, and I will add you to my Morbid Symptoms Substack, and I'm sure Mr. McKay will also add you to his recommendations. I mean, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I'm just assuming.
But yeah, no, I'm a housing campaigner, and currently trying to campaign to get a hell of a lot more women only, that is single sex, emergency homeless accommodation, because we've got a absolute spiraling situation with particularly these hotels that people are being housed in. It used to be a desperate last resort sort of temporary measure, but unfortunately has become the norm for people that when they apply as homeless to the council, they get stuck in these places for up to a year. And they're very, very dangerous for men and women, but particularly for women. And increasingly, there's lots of families with small children also in these places.
Okay, and Laura, this is great, because this is exactly where I'm going to put. I don't know if you know, but when you upload videos to YouTube, you can put a little bookmark, and I'm going to flag, because a couple of weeks ago we went into great detail, or you went into great detail about this, and I'll be for sure to flag that on this video so people can check it out.
Thank you. But I think it does tie in to the whole Corbyn debacle, because I don't think you can really talk about fighting fascism without mentioning the hotels, especially in this city, in Glasgow, where we've got a massive homelessness problem.
Yeah.
And
we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I appreciate it. I know, because I never have to worry about filling space when I have you two on, which is great. But we're going to get to that for sure. Or there'll be a space for you to bring that up. I just wanted to say that there's still a lot of denial. We got some pushback, at least on X, about I used the choice of the word post-mortem, and a few people came at me for that, like, it's not dead yet, and why are you saying that? And I just kind of, it's interesting to me. It's like it's just a title for a podcast. I'm not like a medical examiner or something. Like, I can't be that clickbaity. I mean, obviously it worked, but it was just kind of funny trying to push me, like, what do you mean? I'm like, watch and then come and tell me how bad I am, Anyway, but I noticed there's still a lot, even after this last thing with the debacle with the website membership, and then there was accusations of sexism, and it seems one thing is quite clear: there's at least two factions in this so-called hysterical, what I would call a hysterical political party. With an analogy to an hysterical pregnancy, because I'm this whole morbid symptom thing I got going on here. But what I thought we would do is I play two short clips, one by Haas. I'll know his full name, but I think he's probably known to a lot of people. He's affiliated with the Workers' Party, and he's big in the pro-Palestine movement. About a 1.5 minute clip, and then also about a minute clip from Laura's favorite person, Craig Murray. No, I'm just kidding. We love Craig. Talking about your party, inside joke. That's about 2 minutes, and then we'll get our response to that, and then we'll go into our program. Does that sound good?
All good.
So hopefully this works. I'm gonna share my screen, and they're just two short clips, so it shouldn't be too long. So I'm just gonna share my screen here. I can remember how that works. Share my screen. What? Oh, sorry. Oh, it popped up and scared me. Share my screen. Yes. I think. Okay, we'll do Craig Murray on George Galloway first. I think this is right on the money.
Has plummeted to the lowest level of public approval of any prime minister in British history, and taken Labour to its lowest share of the vote since it was founded more than a century ago. The centre cannot hold, can it, in United Kingdom politics? Something's going to break.
Yeah, well, I think two things are going to break. I mean, we know what happens from the destruction of the Liberal Party just over a century ago, when under the first past the post system, one party gets replaced by another. And it looks like we're going to see both the Labour and Conservative parties getting replaced as the main parties in a two-party system. First past the post will always tend towards a two-party system. It doesn't work well with multiple parties. And it results, when you have multiple parties, you get really cheeky results, like the Labour Party getting such a massive majority on only about 32% of the vote. But this time, it looks like the Labour Party really is facing oblivion, and the Conservative Party much the same thing. And undoubtedly, Reform's going to do rather well, unfortunately, with their pandering to, if you like, the immigration concerns of the British people by pointing towards racism. And it looked for a little while as though your party may be well placed to fill in the gap, to become the opposition on the left. But as you know, the last week has seen what looked like rather disastrous developments on the Your Party front.
Now, when you were an ambassador, it was in Uzbekistan. You were sacked by a Labour Prime Minister and
Okay, so that wasn't quite as spicy as I thought, but we'll get to we'll compare. Now I'll play Haas's clip, which is like a minute and a half, and then we'll come back and get your thoughts on if this is denial or bargaining or whatever you want to add to that. So let me get this one on here. I have to share my screen again. Sorry. So share screen. Oh, good, it's there. Okay. So this is DD geopolitics, and then we have
yeah. Well, I think we hit everything. Did we cover everything you wanted to cover, Uncle Haas?
Pretty much, yeah. Pretty much. Yeah.
Chris, do you have anything?
The only question I have for our beloved uncle here is, how do you think the Workers' Party of Britain can help to shape the political landscape in the UK going forward? and what are your short-term, medium-term, and long-term goals for the Workers' Party of Britain?
So the Workers' Party of Britain, we've decided that we're going to join your party and in any way that we can to help support it.
This patent just destroyed the £8 billion hearing aid industry.
Uh-oh.
2 seconds for this medical device to destroy your hearing.
I hope you're getting paid for this, Tara.
Oh, I'm sure.
Conversation in seconds.
There we go.
Because we have faith in Jeremy Corbyn as the leader of the left. He is the only natural leader. He was the leader of the opposition. He's got more of a mandate than Keir Starmer does. He had 12 million people that voted for him. Keir Starmer got in with 9 million people. So just to be absolutely clear, we didn't win the elections with Jeremy Corbyn last time because there was a combination of Conservatives with Irish MPs, DUP members of Parliament, that got the majority. So that is the reason why Jeremy didn't. I mean, he wasn't going to win anywhere, but we could have made a deal with the SNP. We could have done a deal as the Labour with other parties as well. We could have done it with the Liberal Democrats, and we'd have been in a majority. But the Conservatives had 12 DUP that voted with them, and they got the government. I personally think that the only thing that matters is changing the landscape of the politics of the country before it runs away from itself. Why? Because the Labour Party has proven itself not to be a left party anymore. It's not even a centre-leaning party. It's now becoming a right-wing party. It's become the Conservative Party of 20 years ago or 10 years ago. The Conservatives are on the right-hand side of where they were 20 years ago. The Reform Party are even further right. So my biggest fear, and why I have not called Zara Sultana names, not called Jeremy names, and I keep trying to say to people, we as the Workers' Party would like to see the end of fascism in our society. And fascism at the moment, its face is the face of the Labour Party, and tomorrow it will become the Reform Party. These are fascists. They don't care about the poorest people in society. We're supposed to have a representative democracy where the people we vote for, who are our MPs, are supposed to reflect the will of the people. They get into power, and every single one of these people that gets in there, once they're in government, it's no longer their will. It's the will of the British establishment that has come before it, whether it's a Conservative Party or a Labour Party. It's whatever the will of that government or the British establishment that will tell, well, sorry, sir, but we've got to go and do it this way. Sorry, sir, we've got to do it this way. And that is where the fault or the breakdown of democracy is. I know that if we have Jeremy win and become the leader of the left in this country, the way he's organizing it, which is this is going to be a community-led sort of from the bottom to the top policies and ways of creating communication with civil society, that's the best way for politics to go. It's also a place where socialism has a chance to grow, because we nearly got socialism in 2016 and 17. We were that far away from getting that. And we
Okay. So Alex, comments?
Which one would you like a comment on first? Because
Let's start with Hawes first, because and nothing. I'm really I have no problem with him, although I think he's living in kind of fantasy land, but maybe I am.
Well,
so let's start with
I
Hawes
have
first.
no problem with him because I've never met him. So,
Okay.
but I do completely and utterly disagree with him because, which doesn't necessarily mean I find the man himself disagreeable. But let's roll with this. To say that you were within striking distance of socialism in 2017 is utter nonsense, though. I mean, I don't think he believes that himself, because he said prior to that, well, a party gets in and it gets told what to do by the British establishment. So look, I was in the Labour Party from the end of 2015 until middle of 2018. That was long enough. And Jeremy Corbyn, the description that Haas there gives of Jeremy Corbyn as this great figure that led this heroic charge for socialism, I'd like to know what he was watching. Because if he was in the Labour Party at the time, I'd like to know if it was the same Labour Party I was in. Because what I witnessed when what I talked about most recently with Professor David Miller, you mentioned earlier, shameless plug from me.
No, everyone should go watch that. It's excellent.
Is a series of completely cowardly, useless capitulations. Every chance that Corbyn had to actually go against the British establishment, he turned in the other direction every single time. Every chance he had to mobilize people in a serious way, he went in the other direction. Every chance he had to radicalize things, he went in the other direction. And all that did was take all the enthusiasm which he initially did have and drain it away. And that you add into that the complete nonsense of the anti-Semitism fakery stoked up by the British state and Zionist operatives. You add into that the confused mess over Brexit, the litany of like very dubious people Corbyn chose to surround himself with, and you get a complete disaster. So I don't know what he was watching for those years, because it wasn't the Labour Party I was in, where even when Corbyn apparently got control of the machine, things got worse. So there's that, first of all. The second point I wanted to raise was this idea about, Jeremy's going to have a lovely democratic participatory structure.
It's working out great so far.
So far, so bureaucratic. But I was part of things like the People's Assembly over a decade ago. I've been through things that politicians like Jeremy Corbyn like to go and speak at, which is these events which have a lot of people attending. A lot of people get up and make contributions. They're noted down, and then those who run the meeting go off and do what they were going to do anyway. That's the nature of the kind of Labourism that Corbyn represents. And I'll just conclude on this point. Labourism is what he still represents, because he's still a Labour man, even if he's been kicked out of the party. He represents a form of Labourism, which is actually, it talks the language of democracy and consultation, but it is run really by these the sort of left bureaucrats of the TUC, who value, their own position over everything else, who certainly aren't really interested in listening to anybody, but they are interested in pretending to listen to people, which is what we will get, which is what I think Corbyn's clique, or the clique that surrounds Corbyn, wants to deliver for your party. They want a conference that will look like it's all friendly and modern and participatory, but the outcome will be decided beforehand. They'll have an outcome in mind. That's why they're saying it will happen in November, because they've already got the outcome. What they'll do is they'll let a load of leftists come into a room. They'll all make speeches. They'll all feel really good about themselves, and then they'll go home, and St. Jeremy will say, "And this is what we're doing." And they'll already have that document written. Trust me on this one. I've been to enough union conferences to know when a leadership has already decided the outcome before it starts. So, with all respect to Haas, I've never met the guy, but I think what he's doing there is putting forward the idealized version of the Corbyn leadership, which means that if Galloway is leading the Workers' Party into your party, he's basically leading them in blind. Because if that's the way that, if they're talking about this, the way that he's in their private discussions, which I'm not privy to, the way they're talking about it publicly, they are misleading their own membership, because this is going to go precisely nowhere, and we can get into why later on, but I'll just pause there.
Great, thank you. I have some things to chime in as well, but Laura, do you have anything you want to say in response to what you just saw? Either clip.
It's a bit strange. This sudden. I mean, living in Scotland is really weird, because you've got this constant sort of dual, sometimes conflicting interests. So seeing Craig Murray in the same week that he was at the UN making a case for Scotland being a colony, and a very powerful case for Scottish independence to be recognised internationally, should it obviously be passed democratically, to then go on arch unionist George Galloway's show and be talking about the importance of an electoral alliance and stuff. It's just really strange. It would be nice, I think, to see some of the Scots that are interested in signing up actually talk about that and how that is a contentious issue. The idea of your party in some form going into coalition with the SNP does not fill me with, it's not
great feelings.
I mean, it's a neoliberal party. It's a right-wing party, and as far as I'm concerned, it's a unionist party. At the end of the day, it's completely captured. So no, I don't see that as something to particularly look forward to either. Yeah.
Well, what a Debbie Downer.
Sorry.
They don't like it when you rain on their parade. Yeah. And I just wanted to, I think that just something that caught my ear. Again, I only know, I never knew Hawes until the Palestine thing kicked off. And he's been, right at the forefront of that in London. But just assuming that he has some sort of, I'm assuming some conceptual and historical knowledge, it's like this idea that when he was like, we're this close to socialism, as if you've ever, by voting in a kind of somewhat nominally socialist party is what means you're socialist. I'm like, well, Venezuela should be, have attained perfect communism or something. So it was kind of like you get we have the system that we have, but if we're able to get your party and somehow that magically makes it a socialist system. But okay. And then I wanted to mention, when you mentioned about participatory, you talk about it's going to be grassroots, it's going to be participation, and I'm like, okay, yeah, there's a show, there's kind of a rubber stamp, and you have to make people think like they're being heard and get together and have a good time. I remember thinking about when participatory development became the big thing in the development sector, and the World Bank started talking about voices of the poor, and now you have to have participatory development. And if we're going to help we're going to have slum sanitation, we have to go and talk to the people in the slums and find out where they're going to the bathroom and all, all this stuff. And I remember asking once, like, well, has everyone ever studied like what the World Bank's policy was before and after they have these participatory exercises? And what gets changed and what doesn't. And I remember someone, I think I was at some sort of development conference, it might have been at University of Bath, and it like stumped the person, like, oh yeah, that would be a really great project. And I'm thinking, yeah, wouldn't it be to see it? It's just so ridiculous. But anyway, I remember, and I only mention that because I know that there's a lot of people, probably more maybe on both the Corbinista and the Sultanist swing, what I'm calling it now, that come from that kind of sector. Yeah, so the NGO sector, the development sector, and so everything has to be inclusive and participatory, but the policies don't really ever change that much. So, and one last thing, maybe we'll come back to this later, because people could probably, and anyone who watches me regularly knows that, well, can tell from the sound of my voice that I'm not, that I'm an American. We're getting this thing in the States that it's going to be fascism, and the Democrats are going to say, you got to vote for us or it's fascism. And the left and the right and the Trump, we already know they're going to say like the radical right wants to kill you, and if you don't vote for us, it's going to be fascism. So it's going to be like, this again this mammoth battle to kind of make it seem like there's a bigger difference between these two sides than there are. And it seems that that's going to be the discourse in the UK as well, that we have to do this or else it's going to be fascism. And anything on that before we get into more of the post-mortem of your party?
Well, just on that question, I mean, I would argue that Corbyn is already teeing up his intentions with regard to that. I mean, he did a tweet today talking about the evils of reform and this needs to be fought and stuff like that. So I think what he's teeing up there is basically a coalition to stop fascism. That's basically where it's going, because we can run some tests on this, because we know the French left fell down this particular trap. In the last French parliamentary election, where Mélenchon put together this sort of motley left coalition, including some outright reactionaries like François Hollande and the old French Parti Socialiste, but they combined together with Macron to stand against the fascist Marine Le Pen, despite the fact that Macron had been battering the French working class quite literally through the Gilets jaunes movement for many years, had been relentlessly attacking the French working class. And then we're taught, then the French working class is told by the left, well, now you have to do a tactical vote for these guys to stop the fascists. And what will be done here, I think, and what Starmer is already pivoting towards or trying to, and then who knows, Labour Party might get rid of Starmer, bring in somebody a little bit more convincing before the election, is they're going to go with fascism is on the march. Look at reform. Look at Stephen Yaxley Lennon. Look at all the flags they're waving. Look at all the racists. And their aim will be to scare the anybody like who quite rightly doesn't want that into essentially voting either for the Labour Party or the Liberals. And what you'll see is a desperate attempt to resurrect the Labour Party's vote that way. And then that will put your party, if it even exists by that stage, in a bind, because what does St. Jeremy do? Does St. Jeremy stand everywhere and stand against Labour MPs and be accused of allowing fascism in? As the likes of Paul Mason are already claiming that this is what it's all about. Jeremy helping Farage, therefore helping Putin, therefore helping, I don't know, the Russian invasion of Kent. By the way, I've been to Kent. They're welcome to it. But the point is, I mean, this is what the likes of Corbyn and those who surround him, if this party still exists, they will fall right into that trap. And this was a discussion I remember being around in the Labour Party in 2016, and then certainly after 2017, with people who called themselves Corbynites saying, well, we need a coalition with the Lib Dems and the Green Party and the SNP, and there'll be this wonderful coming together of progressive forces, and we'll lock out the fascists forever. And just to go back to the point that I opened on, these people don't understand what fascism is. They think it's just mean things that are said, or mean things that are tweeted, or Farage being racist, or Yaxley Lennon dancing about on stage like a sort of coke-addled monkey. But it's not that. It's the organized violence of the ruling class that is brought down on the working class to secure the rule of a capitalism which is being threatened by organized working class power. Now, we have a drift to more reactionary politics, but that doesn't mean it's fascism. And if you keep screaming it over and over again, that everything is fascism, people aren't going to listen to you. And the problem with it, then this is, we're going to be subjected to this very cynical operation over the next few years to try and shore up the votes of the Labour Party by claiming that Farage is going to institute, I don't know, the real resurrection of Oswald Mosley or something. Whereas, don't get me wrong, Farage is a reactionary. But so is Keir Starmer. So is Kemi Badenoch, if she's still around. So is Ed Davey. So are the leaders of the Green Party. They've all done horrific things, or would do if they got the chance. So the choice for, people being attracted to, Corbyn maybe is still understandable. But look at the man's record and look at what he's obviously preparing for, which is even if they survive, even if they do well, what he'll do is he'll sell out to do a coalition with the Labour Party. And it'll drain all the energy out of it. So as people have basically run around in what they think is an anti-Labour party, only to be told, now we've got to go in with Labour and the Liberals and the Greens and whoever else they can find to stop the fascists. All that's going to do is increase the popularity of reform, basically. Because this is what's happened in places like France. You see the popularity of like these the really reactionary party go up, and their image as rebels be enhanced because they can say, look at us, we've been subjected to an establishment stitch up, and the left ties itself to the establishment, as Mélenchon and his crew very stupidly did in France.
Yeah, I think, and it's just, I guess it makes sense how much the UK politics and American politics kind of echo or rhyme, because it's the same thing that you have for a long time, ever since Nader. Like, people still blame Nader for George W. Bush winning the first time. It's convenient, or Stein for Trump winning, or whatever. So it's convenient, and nobody wants to be a spoiler. And I think it might have been, just as an aside here, I don't want to get too off track, I think it was Chris Hedges who said that, or was it, I can't remember, somebody said about Bernie Sanders that he didn't want to be a Ralph Nader. There was no way he was going to risk the Democrats not winning. So anyway, and I think that what you would say is that and we talked about this before in season 1, the parallels between Bernie and as Alexander likes to call him, St. Jeremy from Islington. But moving on, so the first thing I wanted to talk about a bit is just because most people who are following us now probably have some sort of idea already aware about the division, at least between the Sultana camp and the Corbyn camp, for lack of a better word. And I just want to I want to get your thoughts on this. Your thoughts on this a bit, but I would rather, and I think you as well, would rather spend the bulk of our time looking at the kind of the objective and subjective reasons why this has come to naught, and also then get into what it tells us or what we can learn from this exercise when it comes to the left in general, and the ailments of that. So I'll share with I'm calling the Sultanists and the Corbinists, but I didn't come up with the Sultanists. This person tweeted the other day after the last rigmarole over the membership over Sultana's team sending out an email for people to sign up as members and donate money. And Juan Mac said he's your party, but in parentheses, a Sultanist. And it made me kind of think of in the UK, and I guess maybe in other places, where people say Communist Party, they'll say Communist Party, Marxist-Leninist, or just Communist Party, which I guess means, figure out if we're Trotskyist or not. I'm not sure. And I just want to say, I just want to say that I don't think Juan Mac's profile pic is so perfect that I have to share it. So let's see if I can find that. Here is Juan Mac. And he has one of these kind of GIMP sex masks on. I'm not sure. I'm not down with the sex mask lingo, but I'm having flashbacks of like Pulp Fiction when they say get the GIMP and they open up the chest and this guy comes out with the thing. Anyway, so Juan Mac says, I hate to bug you in the middle of dinner. Nay agenda, but the gay agenda. Jobber to the stars. I don't know what that means. And he's a he, him. So I thought, well, not a surprise that he was with the Sultanists. And so this is what inspired me to have this be the pick for Sultana's court. So you have her there. I have the light pink and the baby blue sari, and then you have various kind of androgynous or not so androgynous people they're having a good time. Juan Mac is there someplace in the back doing whatever it is that he does. And then I thought, at least my thought is, I thought, well, compared to that, this is how I would imagine kind of a typical Corbynist event, going kind of more austere, maybe meeting, in a country pub or something. And then you have the kind of the bureaucrats and the Aparcheks there. And on the other side, you have the more kind of grainy, I don't know, maybe retired teachers or something. I'm not sure. But you guys will probably know much more than that. What about just the internal divisions, besides just miscommunication and a more kind of, just kind of disorganization? What do you think accounts for the splits that we're seeing come out in these kind of, I would say, overreaction to miscommunications about membership drives and whatnot?
Do you want to go first?
No, you go first. Okay.
Well, just on the various factions here point to they basically mirror some of the contradictions that always existed in the Labour Party, which is that the Labour Party for years was home to the wokest of the woke lefts outside of certain Trotskyite organizations. But at the same time, it was always home to people, various MPs who were very socially conservative, and albeit quietly so a lot of the time. And Sultana's outburst a couple of weeks ago now, where she said that there's no place here for people with socially conservative views, said on stage perfectly with the most unfunny comedian on the BBC, and that's some competition to be in, Nish Kumar, who I will never understand where he came from or how he's got a career. But she said it to him in the usual smug, self-satisfied fashion. That was a reference to one of the Muslim guys who won a seat based a lot on the sort of split in a previously solid Labour vote towards candidates that stood on a pro-Palestine platform in the last general election. who are Muslim men who apparently seem to be men of certain socially conservative views who have been working with Corbyn in this parliamentary group that he's in. So they make up actually the bulk of the MP base that would nominally be in your party. So then Sultana comes along and says, "Oh, there's no room for you." Well, that's first of all a phenomenally arrogant statement. How does she get to decide that? It rather reveals the sort of very top-down nature of her thinking, but also reveals the fact that that contradiction in the Labour Party was never addressed. So the Labour Party gets to play this game whereby on the one hand it had not only people of socially conservative Muslim views in it, but also it had people like Lee Anderson in it. Lee Anderson became like a Twitter star and a GB News presenter. He was in the Tories for 5 minutes. Now he's in Reform. The guy's, very, very racist, very reactionary. But the Labour Party used to also be filled with people like that. A lot of them were trade union officials. So it reflects a certain contradiction within the base of your party, which is essentially the same base as the Labour Party. You have, on the one hand, people who come up through local Labour parties who might be social conservatives, who sort of sit quietly and don't generally broadcast their views a lot. And the loud noise is made by the sort of wokest of the woke types doing endless posturing and waving trans flags. Or on the other hand, I remember this to reference directly the immigration question. I remember from 20 years ago, on the one hand, you had David Blunkett, if anybody remembers him, saying kick them out, we're being swamped, etc. We will take tough action. And on the other hand, you had people like supporting the official anti-racist organizations saying we must stop the racists, whilst being part of a government that took inspiration directly from the racists. So this is all going to come back into your party because it is basically a recreation of a lot of aspects of the Labour Party. And it's a recreation of all of its contradictions, which are now being much more openly expressed because your party doesn't have in place the very solid bureaucracy that the Labour Party does, which keeps a lid on all this stuff. And it only comes out when somebody in the press team decides they want to discredit somebody. So they're all fighting over this out in the open. And I would say another key reason for this, and this is the deeper reason, is that to attempt to recreate post-World War II British social democracy in the context of a Britain as a diminishing late-stage imperialist power, which is largely deindustrialized, which is getting more deindustrialized all the time, which is run by a tiny clique in and around the city of London, and whose economic policies are almost all tailored to benefit that group, then how are you going to recreate a social democracy that was based on Britain being an industrialized country with, by the way, an empire it could still exploit? Because as we know from the studies done by people like Tony Norfield, a lot of the money for those reforms in post-World War II came from hyper-exploiting colonized nations. Something, again, most of the British left doesn't want to talk about that. Nobody likes to know where the money comes from. It's rude to ask such things. And so they're going to have to deal with that. They're going to have to deal with these questions, which is when they're asked, for instance, if they indeed last, where's the money coming from? What they're going to do is come up with some nonsense derived from MMT or something like that. But they're not going to be able to reckon with the question of, well, how are you going to do all the things that you say you want to do, which are still largely the demands of what you said before, Tara, which is left bureaucracy, petty bourgeois leftists, NGO types, which is divorced from a productive base because Britain increasingly doesn't have one. So where's all this? How's all this going to be put into place? They can't really deal with any of those questions because, as I think it was a right winger who said that people like Sultana have done politics on easy mode for their entire career. They've cruised along on the backbenches saying I want nice things for nice people. Well, now's the time when you have to answer questions, and I don't think any of them will be able to, and they won't be able to deal with these contradictions.
And I just want to bring up a quote that I think you alluded to. This is one of the dramas. And Zara Sultana said this a couple of weeks ago. This is what Alexander was alluding to. I'll read this and then I'll switch it over to Laura. There is no room for socially conservative views in the socialist left-wing party, period. We have to defend the rights, dignity, and life of everyone, and that means centering the most marginalized. If people don't have pro-trans, pro-migrant, anti-racist values, there are plenty of other political spaces that you can enter, not this one. We have to have our values. We need to let people know what we stand for. Then we need to be going out to the country and saying, this is the vision of society that we want, et cetera, et cetera. Now, two things and this sounds all fantastic, but another thing is like centering the most marginalized, or what people might say, like first two things. First of all, just because someone or something's marginalized, first you need more information. Like, why is it marginalized? Why is it not being centered? Is there discrimination? That, you know, obviously sometimes you have to have discrimination, or else we can't do anything if we don't distinguish between A and B and 1 and 2 and up and down, etc., and so on. So that was the thing. And then there's no room, which is an odd, like you mentioned, it's an odd place to start a party, as in there's no room for all you people. If you can't just be indifferent or tolerant, you have to be actively anti-racist. This is again this kind of right fragility, Ibram X. Kendi thing going in maybe that started in the States. That you have to be actively anti-racist, pro-trans, pro-migrant, and it just seems an odd place to start. Anything you want to say about how you see where the rivalries or the skirmishes, maybe the difference between what we see online in terms of, oh, it's a mailing list, oh, there's bad communication, oh, it's this MP said that trans women aren't biological women, and Sultana got mad. But Laura, do you have anything you want to add about what you make of this, how you read these internal divisions and the infighting that's been for some reason carried out online?
I'll put really crudely, it just seems like a matter of ego and money to me. I think they both want to be in control of the funding. It doesn't seem to be a political thing in particular. Like, I'd agree with Alex that, like, largely I think the people that are flocking and joining or signing up do want some kind of vague return to social democracy. But I don't really know if that's being, aside from like really shallow soundbite stuff, I don't really know if that's being put forward by Corbyn or Sultana. Certainly when it comes to issues like housing, it's very vague sort of student politics-y stuff that they're coming out with. But that statement there, that reads, that's like NGO speak, right? So it's
HR,
it's very important to have the correct views. There's no space for social conservatism. Just like, this is kind of like the United Front thing again. We can't have, any racism. We can't have any fascist leanings. But it's okay to have people who have supported various, wars and foreign interventions. Okay to have people who back up fascist states in other countries. It's okay to support people who took us into wars that killed millions of people. That's all fine as long as nobody uses the wrong language, is what it feels like. And I think this is the problem we have, is like this, you can't have a united front against fascism. You're not stopping the fascists from getting in if you're allying with these people. And so like, I think that kind of that NGO culture of everybody says the right words and makes the right noises, but ultimately just agrees with the status quo, and they're all funded by the government to say nice things about the government in the right language to ensure that nothing ever really changes. So you can have a perfectly lovely progressive government like we did in Scotland, because a lot of things are devolved, obviously not enough. But we had a government that said it loved refugees, and that Scotland was an open and welcoming country that was shoving them in places where they were dying in their dozens of people dying every year, hundreds of people dying, and they were directly responsible for that. So that was a direct result of their policies. But it's okay because at least they're not, using racist language. And it's like, I think it's a class thing as well. It's like the shadier operatives that are, funneling money to dodgy states, or like, artificially creating support, for what is it, Israel, Ukraine, whatever, what have you. Those are tolerated. The warmongers are tolerated. The people that are actually making millions out of the suffering of these vulnerable and marginalized individuals are tolerated. But what you can't tolerate is the kind of racism that appeals to working class people, i.e. the kind of racism that is offered to them by reform, which, the anti-migrant stuff, it's wrong, but it's an explanation for the things that people are seeing happening in society. It's a bad explanation, but it's an explanation. Whereas the left doesn't want to give any explanation. It just wants to say racism is bad, so vote for us. So this is why one of the reasons I've been so annoyed with Craig Murray, and I don't want to stick the boot into Craig Murray this week because he's done such great work, as I said, at the UN, standing up for Scotland. But it really bugs me to see him palling about with George Galloway and never criticizing his views on independence. But also, the guy's come out with an awful lot of anti-migrant rhetoric in the last couple of years. He has nothing to say to him, but he was having a go at poor Sandy Peggy on Twitter a few weeks ago, saying that she's a terrible bigot and all this. And it's like, well, basically, you people are happy to take money from a lot of very dodgy types as long as the social conservative working class don't get involved. And I'm sorry, but you're going to actually have to deal with some working class people, and some of them have the wrong views and they use the wrong language, but they do want to return to a welfare state. They want an end to homelessness. A lot of them are very much against wars and foreign invasions. You know what I mean? And it's like, you need to work with them, but you're already saying, no, we don't want you. And at the end of the day, they don't have as much money, So these people are sucking up to their pals that work in NGOs, etc. And it's just a big circle jerk that perpetuates itself forever, and it's not going to lead to any change.
Yeah, and I just want to say that just as a flag for anybody that's out there, I do want to have an episode on: is there any anti-immigration views that aren't problematic, and that people, or are they all wrong, misguided? And to get to the thing about, freedom of association, and if people have a preference to live with a certain mix of people, is that always, do we need to develop different language or more nuance for that thing? But that's something I just want to flag there if anybody wants to help me approach that really, not hot topic on that. Maybe Alexander will come back, give a history of a Marxist-Leninist position on immigration and cultural, I don't know what you want to call it, protection or elevation, etc. Okay, so for sure, thanks. And I want to just ask, on that note, on what Laura just said, I want to bring up another follow-up quote from Ms. Sultan. I don't know if she's married or not. If we're going to change, again, this idea, if we're going, that's not, I don't think this is a socialist idea, at least aligned with Marxism. If we're going to change society, we have to center the most marginalized people. This is my theory, is that one of the things, maybe we'll circle back to it when we talk about what this shows us, or what we can garner from this about the left, the problem with the lefts in general, is that you have kind of like this PMC or NGO or professional class, and then you have the kind of their favorite lumpen of the year, and they kind of go together. And it's like, look, we're over here doing this stuff, but we're gonna showcase I don't know, furry, polyamorous, non-binary people, or we're gonna find the most matrix of oppressed person, and we're going to shine a light on them, and we're going to raise their voice while we do all the other stuff that, the neoliberal thing, or we kind of, put a softer face on the capitalist machine, or etc. So that, and another thing, I don't know, maybe I didn't bring it, but I can remember it because it's another thing I want to get both your opinions on. This idea that the more inclusive you are, the better. The more irons in the fire, the more mixer in the drink, the more potent the political force. And I think that's ass backwards. But what do you two think?
Shall I go first, or do you want to go first?
On any of that? Or feel free to just pretend I said whatever you want to say that allows you to make an important point. That's also always an option.
Well, Zara Sultana's like sort of running a bad photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy of the original writings of those who founded Eurocommunism, essentially, which is the movement that emerged post 60s amongst the Western European communist parties, where they started to decenter working class struggle and bring in all these other things, not as expressions of class politics, but freestanding. So you bring in environmentalism, but it's not the environmentalism of the working class. It's just the kind of environmentalism that ultimately morphs into the Green Party and NGOs. You bring in certain varieties of like racial politics, but again, it's filtered through like essentially like a declassed thing. So it's like, oh, well, you know, we're now going to represent black people, as if there's no division in, you know, amongst the black population of Britain.
Well, then us white people just go around and say we're sorry about that and feel really bad about it. Yeah.
Feel bad, move on, or don't. But the point about it is like, it's as if like, if you look at the Zara Sultana's like tweets, and Corbyn's, to be fair, because he's no better, like they'll mention like a strike every now and again. They'll pick one out to talk about that. You know, the trade union bureaucracy is pushing a lot, and they'll proclaim that they are in favor of this strike winning. They'll say, oh, we want better laws for workers, that kind of thing. We want more trade union rights, but that will then go alongside like trans rights now, basically. Or like, we want justice for the Palestinians. They won't really say what that means. But also, we need to, you know, stop the Uyghur genocide, or maybe the trans genocide.
Free Tibet.
Free Tibet.
Back to the feudal lords, baby.
Yeah, bring back the Dalai Lama in his somewhat dubious ways with children. Because that's what, you know, freedom really
Richard
means.
Gere would not steer us wrong. Okay.
So, but both for certainly Zara Sultana, like the contradictions with her are huge, because on the one hand she says, "Oh, but she says I'm an anti-Zionist. We need to stop Israel." Okay, she also backed the regime change war in Syria, which is now run by a man, al-Sharaa or al-Jilani or whoever he actually is, who is a obviously paid agent of Britain, the United States, and Israel. And the destruction of the Ba'athist government of Syria aided principally Israel, Britain, and the United States, with Turkey in the mix as well. So where's your consistency here? Do you think about things for more than 5 seconds, or do you just grab a slogan and tweet about it? Or is it the case that this is more sinister and like you will disagree with certain things that the British state does, but when it comes to British state priorities, such as destroying Syria. Zara Sultana, by the way, has been notably, he regularly denounces Putin's tyranny, makes noises about the tyranny of the Chinese, etc. So when it comes to the really big issues that the British ruling class has a real priority over, which are continuing domination over the entirety of West Asia, doing over the Russians in Ukraine, destabilizing the CPC government in China, Zara Sultana's all on board with that. So in many respects, either she's a fool who just gets easily led around, or she knows exactly what she's doing and she understands what her role is, which is that she's the left face of British imperial politics, because that's looking like the more likely explanation, because that's consistent with the Labour left's entire history post World War II, and indeed before that as well, which is as the left face of imperial apologism.
So she's kind of like the UK Barack Obama.
More like the
off shelf. I don't know. I don't want to insult her.
Well, I don't know who you're insulting for that one, really. He's a better actor, but more like the British version of AOCIA. You know?
Oh, okay. Oh, that's true. I'm sorry. I should. Yeah. All right.
And it's
Laura.
It's not just on the international stuff. I think it's on basic bread and butter issues as well. So everything they say feels like it's been through the NGO machine, So, you know, they talk about housing as like a major issue. Like it is like one of the biggest issues facing the country. And I mean, these people have had a long time to think about it and become experts on these subjects. You know, it's not like, it's not forgivable for them to just come out with a little soundbite. But what's the first thing they jump on is rent controls for private tenants. It's not a national house building company. It's not a massive investment in building thousands and thousands of council homes or a return to the model of council housing. It's, you know, a tried and proven to not work strategy for making things a little bit better for renters in the private sector. Now, I'm not saying I'm against rent controls, but it's that's what you get when you have a bunch of government-funded NGOs that are sent away to think about something that isn't really going to shake things up. You know, and it's like that's
well, again, and the inclusivity. What can we get everybody or enough people to agree to that's not going to cause any problems and sounds good? I would guess
that won't bother the big money makers at the end of the day. That won't bother the housing associations and the developers that are making all the money.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we've covered that pretty good. I think we've also touched upon, particular Alexander, the kind of the more looking at the objective conditions and subjective conditions that make this your party historical pregnancy type party great for British imperialism or global for capitalism, but from the perspective of at least what I think all three of us would at least agree on, that the left is quite I don't know, maybe an abomination or something like that. Do you just want to kind of recap in terms of the objective conditions that we're facing? So you have a stagnating economy, you have increased hollowing out from the imperialist system, you have NATO wars, you have increasing financial dominance and real estate and this type of thing. Then with subjective conditions, at least on the left, at least the people like Haas, and just use them as an example because I showed those two clips. You know, either you have the people who are disillusioned and are just like, whatever, you're not going to get me again. Or you get this thing like, if we can get Corbyn, and if they can, you know, what Haas was like, if we can, I'm keep on trying to tell people not to call each other names and to be nice. And if we can get them over the finish line, then, you know, socialism on the horizon, whatever that means. And I guess I'll wrap up this long question and to both of you, in what way, again, to recap this, does your party and Haas and Corbyn or who and Sultana misrecognize the terrain, and it leads them, will give them the benefit of the doubt that they say what they mean, and offering kind of a fantasy instead of a strategy that's really going to be able to make any dent in any long-term change that gets us out of this kind of I don't know, declining empire, to quote, to plug Alexander and Kit's Decline and Fall.
Well, just briefly on the objective conditions that you mentioned, which is where you've got a late stage imperialist economy, which is what Britain is, which is heavily financialized, more so than even the United States is. There's much less of a manufacturing base. There's much less of an actual productive base upon which you could actually properly base like a reform program that social democrats used to want to implement. What you've got is a parasitic economy. You've got a non-productive economy where, like, investment, when the government tries to make investments for instance, infrastructure building, the budget balloons beyond all recognition. The money drains off through various different parasitic companies and entities that sort of drain resources at every single stage. Because of course, in the post-70s period, which are referred to by certain academics as the neoliberal period, which shouts and screams, where the politicians shout and scream about taking on bureaucracy, it creates many bureaucracies, but it privatizes them all. And so every single investment program drains money out of it, becomes entirely inefficient. Now, that's important Because if you're going to outline like a big capital spending program, which is what Corbyn says he's in favor of in a sort of vague way, and you don't change the way that the state is organized and run, well, then you're just going to pour good money after bad. I'll use the example of the NHS budget. The NHS budget has, everybody argues about how much money they've put into it and how much, but what Corbyn did mention briefly when he's Labour leader, to be fair, but not enough, was how much money drains out. And that drains out through privatizations, and it drains out through semi-private and fully private bureaucracies. And this is the way that the British state is structured now. It's structured to redistribute money into various different parasitic entities, private companies, banks, etc., but with the banks playing the leading guiding role. So how are you going to reform that? How are you going to use Laura's example of housing? The reason why they run scared of actually doing anything about housing, I think, is because if you go near that, if you say we will return to a mass council house building program, that's the end of the property price bubble, which started to inflate when they started to destroy council housing. Now, if you're going to pop that bubble, that means a few very rich people are going to be very, very angry because you just basically cost them a load of their investments. Also, a lot of other things are invested in the property bubble, are continually expanding, like pension funds. So if you're going to go near that, then you better have a good plan for when these people who control a lot of money and a lot of influence launch their fight back. Or do to Corbyn, for instance, what they did to the beloved, the late, the unlamented Liz Truss, who I use as an example because she's illustrative of what the British establishment will do when, and the tweet is appropriate, 1.57 Liz Truss.
Yeah, just to, this is one of the best. It's been good for the comedy as well.
Yes.
But I can't say this person's name, Cy Perry, I guess. Your party lasted 1.57 Liz Trusses. And for people who don't know, when Liz Truss started getting a lot of heat on her after her, and I can't remember his name, released their economic plan or something like that, and it caused a lot of problems in the financial markets, which of course is a big no-no. Somebody put a live camera on a head of lettuce, and it was like, what's going to last longer, Liz Truss's being a prime minister or this head of lettuce? And I think the lettuce actually won.
Well, yeah, and the lettuce would probably have been there for Jeremy Corbyn as well had he won with the Labour Party, because if they're prepared to do that to Liz Truss, if basically the Bank of England governor is prepared to come out and orchestrate a coup against the sitting prime minister, which is what Andrew Bailey did several years ago, well, then what would they do to a Corbyn government? They would. It would be capital flight on a massive scale. They would say that the pension funds are on the verge of collapse, which means millions of people's retirement savings are about to go up in smoke. And they'd do that. They would bring it to the point of collapse to get rid of somebody that they didn't want. And then when they'd achieve their objectives, they'd say, oh, suddenly things are calm again. You get like IMF bailout on steroids, etc. The point I'm making here is that these people do not make clear to their followers what they are up against because they're not serious. I think Corbyn on some level does comprehend it. He does know what his role is, which is to offer a few tiny crumbs. Because if he's offering tiny crumbs now, what would he actually deliver in government, which is like microscopic crumbs? The same is true for all of these like new left parties that broke through across Europe. Syriza, ultimately a collapse. Podemos ultimately ends up in a very compromised coalition led by Sanchez. Mélenchon ends up basically trying to prop up Macron. I mean, you probably deny that. And so what happens when because the one level, the British state is very repressive, but on another level, it's very repressive because the economy it oversees is fundamentally very fragile. It's all leveraged. It's massive amounts of it are built on debt, and it needs a continual infusion of state funds to keep the parasitic model going. And if you're going to try and undo that, then you need the one strength that you have, or potentially could have, is the mobilization of the working class en masse to fight back against the pressure that the ruling class will bring to bear on you. And Corbyn's sort of milk and water TUC consultation exercise is not going to do that. In fact, that's going to turn the working class off, I would say. So again,
So, Alexander, are you saying that if they were to try to do some of these things and they got the pushback, are you saying that you're not confident that they'd be good street fighters, good political street fighters? I mean that in like a general term. And are you saying that it wouldn't be enough just to gather at Brighton and pass the microphone around and ask everybody how they feel about the the vitriol that's coming at them?
Some very hateful rhetoric out there, and it needs to be confronted.
Are you not believing that hope is nigh, and and Jeremy we trust, and this type of thing? Yeah, I think about that too, and also with you brought up AOC in the States. It's like these people, and they start talking about fascist, and I'm like, if they actually came across a fascist, they'd piss their pants and just like play dead. I think. I mean, I might do that too, but it's all, these. Yeah, I guess it's kind of fantasy land. If you think that's all about toning seem to think if they can just tone the rhetoric down and get back to kind of this kind of bourgeois sensibility or keep calm and carry on, and somehow that in of itself is going to protect us from fascism, I guess. But I'm unconvinced.
Well, their big plan. Will again, like their big plan will be to talk a lot about fairness and a lot about we want nice things, basically. And
on that note, do you want me to play? I'm sorry to interject. I just remembered that you sent me a clip of Saint Jeremy talking about democracy. Shall I tee that up while you
go right ahead?
Yeah. So just go ahead, keep on talking. I'm just going to find it, but I'm also listening.
This isn't to say for a minute that that people like of my politics don't want to see the working class win something. This is not what we're saying. The problem with this with the social democrats of today is that I don't think they understand for a moment how to actually win anything. To actually get anything out of this system now would mean like being able to mobilize like workplaces and communities in a big way to actually bring pressure to bear on existing political and economic structures to frighten essentially those in power, with the alternative being if they don't concede something, then the next phase is something a bit much more serious and much more of a threat to their interests. So to get anything out of the system takes a level of mobilization and militancy which these people are wholly incapable of. And not only that, when such campaigns would start, or such campaigns have existed, the ruling class inevitably fights back, and these people are nowhere to be seen. They'll run away, just like the TUC bureaucrats. When a strike gets real and out of their control, their instinct will be to sell it out because it's too militant, it's too scary. It might alienate the middle class. The markets are scared. I don't know. I might not get my seat in the House of Lords. So this isn't about, because some people like accuse people like myself of like, oh, you don't want to see the working class win, stuff like that. No, we do.
You're a negative Nelly.
Yeah, well, there we go.
Bastard. Sorry.
We have no faith in the ability of Saint Jeremy or Saint Zara the Blessed to actually
the patron saint of male vaginas. Sorry. No, female penises. No, male. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead. Sorry, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Did you want to go?
Well, yeah. I mean, like the male vaginas can be used as a great excuse to not get involved in the kind of mobilizations that Alex is talking about, as I've seen in my own life, like a few times actually. And I agree that, like, yeah, what we need is mass mobilization, but actually small numbers of people, if they're prepared to be militant and if they're prepared to really put the pressure on and to actually devote a lot of time and effort, can win things. And that's why the powers that be, the establishment, put so much effort into crushing even the smallest campaigns, because wins are powerful. But I mean, it was kind of, it's funnier this time round. I mean, it's sad because the stakes are so high in a way. But when momentum showed up and everybody sort of flocked to it and started joining, I mean, it was almost like watching that slow car crash was like, you were constantly asking yourself, is he trying? Is he actually
okay?
trying?
Now, momentum. you mind saying a bit about what that is?
Oh, I just mean the movement to try to get Corbyn elected. Well, first to get the leadership of the Labour Party.
Oh, okay. I thought
yeah,
maybe
but,
momentum
like,
was with a capital M.
Yeah, sorry. So a lot of people
Okay.
joined that would not have joined the Labour Party ever, otherwise, including a lot of former comrades, people that I used to be in the SWP, and a couple of split off from it after that. And I remember telling my father at the time that a lot of them had run off and joined. I remember moaning about them years ago when I was at uni, and he told me, "Mark my words, Laura, they'll all end up in the Labour Party." And I said, "No, they won't. Don't be silly. Not these people." And then momentum came around, and they all ran off and joined the Labour Party. And I was like, "Wow!" And that was baffling, And then we watched it unfurl, and we saw how lackluster and useless he was as a leader back then. And it was kind of, you were constantly asking yourself, is he being crap on purpose? Is this a deliberate thing? Is like, are we being played? And now we're doing it again.
Is insulin low? Yeah.
I mean, it is possible to win, and a small number of people can achieve quite a lot, and then you can build on that, and that's how you build through campaigning. You can't skip that part and just get some guy with a bit of power and a bit of a following to lead you to victory and to socialism, especially not somebody who at the end of the day his class interests are different, because these are not working class people. But everybody somehow expects them to stand up for working class interests. And at the end of the day, I don't think they're going to do that. So you don't get to skip over the bit where you actually build working class power and just get some rich guy that was perfectly happy. I mean, these people were perfectly happy to share a party for years. They managed to get along fine when they were in the Labour Party. They were colleagues for ages. It's only now that they're supposedly trying to lead something that's a real sort of radical movement for change that they're falling out all over the place. So it's not that we don't want people to win or that we don't think that they can. It's that we don't think this is the way forward. And also, just in case somebody whinges at me, I know he did say that he wanted a mass program of council house building, but my point is, like any 15-year-old can say that, he's not outlined any kind of serious plan for how he wants to achieve that. And if you asked him, I'm sure he'd say something vague about a wealth tax that would just melt.
Yeah, the saying things, you can only get away with that for so long. Saying things, yeah. And just to wrap up on this part, again, this ties into if you're going to make to confront the issues that need to be confronted, you need to have a certain amount of militancy, which doesn't mean that everybody has to be militant, but you have to have a militant core. And again, I think one of the things that sometimes now I think maybe by design, but just kind of happened, that the more you focus on intersectionality or inclusivity or this stuff, you decrease the possibility for that militancy. I think it pacifies it on purpose, which makes sense.
Purpose.
Yeah,
as you said. I mean, the reason why, I have said before, and others have said too, is that stuff like gender ideology is basically designed in a laboratory by various dubious academics and agents of the state, is because, well, look at the effect that it has. It's as Laura said, it's a great excuse for doing nothing. It's a great, we can't possibly work with those people over there who are horrendous transphobes, and we can't possibly work with those people over there who are horrendous racists. We can't possibly engage with this community because there's too many problematic opinions in there. So it's a great excuse to basically sit around in an NGO office somewhere or a union office saying, my God, the people have failed us again because of the prevalence of unacceptable views, which is where Zara Sultana is going with that comment. Because this is the sort of fake politics that you're served up. You are given the simulation of struggles over real struggles. And that's, not just gender ideology. That's I would argue that's what anti-fascism has become in Britain and in the United States, no matter what Donald Trump says about Antifa super soldiers or whatever it is today. It is a simulation. It is basically a simulation which recreates elements from when anti-fascism was a real thing back in the 1930s, and recreates it via the NGO system. and it pretends to be a struggle. But just to conclude on this point, like, how can you be struggling against racism and fascism when, again, as you said, like you're saying vote Labour, which is part of the source of racism, part of the source of division. So how, I mean, and I remember making this point years ago, and people would say, oh, well, there's some people in the Labour Party that are very nice. And it's like, well,
J.D. Vance is nice. Trump is charming. Hitler was probably lovely at parties. And again, I'm not saying they're all the same, but again, I know this drives you crazy. It's all crazy. It's like, but they're so nice. It's like, well, and people can do and say really bad things in a very nice way. Just ask Erica Kirk. No, sorry, I don't want to get that heat. Anyway, I wanted to ask on this. So that wasn't the last question on this part, but in terms of getting your guys' opinion on, is this kind of whatever we want to call it, this Corbyn style social democracy, NGO feel good inclusivity type of thing viable at all, or has it become completely anachronistic? And on that, I want to connect another thing about in terms of their misperception or maybe some of the ideology, the beliefs that we have to disabuse ourselves of. I want to connect this to there's this notion that some people have of like the post-war, so like the late 40s to early 70s capitalism in post-war Europe and the United States and whatnot. The idea that somehow that was the norm, that was instead of being a blip or a fluke or kind of a golden, just kind of an outlier, that the idea that we can have that kind of capitalism everywhere, which implies a kind of social democracy welfare state. Do you think that there's still a lot of people who, even if they say they're socialist, still think is that like the horizon of what they think they want to get to? That kind of more kinder, gentler, you have higher taxes on the rich, this type of thing. And if that's even in any way plausible, that the objective conditions we have now could revert back to make that a possibility, even just Britain-wide.
Well, I'll say that the experience of like 45 to 75 is an aberration. And even to get to that level of like reform, which did genuinely take a lot of working class people's living standards forward, certainly did in my own family. But to get to that point took decades of very bitter class struggle in every major urban center and workplace community across Britain. Much of which has now been sort of buried and forgotten. But to even get to the point where there was a Labour Party founded took like decades of campaigning for the franchise by those who fought and died for it immediately after the Napoleonic Wars, by the Chartists, by the early trade unionists. And it took most of the century to get even the votes that would make a parliamentary Labour Party possible. And then it took like decades of struggle and the creation, by the way, of a global center of revolution in the USSR to actually make the kind of social democracy that the Labour Party always said it stood for into something which would become viable because the ruling class was so fucking terrified they gave up reforms. Now, not only is there no Soviet Union anymore, the Chinese aren't interested in exporting revolution. They've made that abundantly clear. But you also have all of the imperialist countries into an advanced stage of parasitism. So you'd need to undo that. You can't make like parasitism. You can't smooth the edges off that because not only is it non-productive, as the terrible rates of economic growth in all of the Western countries show, but also like it's fundamentally unreformable. And the strange thing is, we've never been in a position where if there was like an actual, if a party actually took power in this country that was serious about, changing things, the number one thing you would have to do is nationalize the banking system, because it's the banks that essentially control everything, and the state which continually bails out the banks. So essentially, you already have like the ingredients there to start addressing this if you wanted to, but Corbyn doesn't want to. And more to the point, to answer your question, Tara, in my experience, and I've been around like the British left for over 20 years, which is a painful memory to indulge in. But when it comes down to it, and this is understandable, most of the people I knew in the Trotskyite organization I was in, which is affectionately titled SPEW, Socialist Party of England and Wales, lovely title, proof that the people who came up with that had no sense of humor. But when you come down to it, what they want is essentially welfare capitalism back again, which again, the historical conditions which produced that have gone. We've moved into another phase. So you can't just recreate it, and you can't just magic out of the ground a kind of productive economic base that you would need to base that on. You would need to fundamentally commit yourself to fundamental changes, which are going to cause a lot of disruption. Where therefore, if you are going to get through that as a political movement, you need the mass of the working class on board, and you can't get that when you've got Zara Sultana giving them the middle finger from day one, basically saying you're not acceptable, we don't want you. Well, you can't afford to operate like that if you're a serious political organization. And to go back to Mr. Galloway and his party, they at certain points in their existence seem to have something of an understanding of that. They've wandered off well off into something else now. But you can't start off by saying the following people are unacceptable if you're serious about doing the kind of reforms that they say they want to do, which tells me, to bring my point to conclusion, they're not serious about any of it. Because they don't want the actually existing working class. They want some nice middle class people to sit down and have, I don't know, organic tea and cucumber jam at Jeremy's allotment or something.
Now everyone knows why there's a cucumber in Alexander's AI. It wasn't supposed to be like pornographic.
It wasn't a reference to the Freudian thing.
Let me show. I'll bring that up again, and I'll show the clip of St. Jeremy talking very nice things about democracy. Let me see if I can find. Oh, might as well just do all this now. So I was going hard in the paint with love. You know, sometimes humor helps. So don't count your chickens before they're hatched. My idea that like. I almost thought, like, I don't know if you have those. Well, I'm sure people know, but like, you know, incubators for chicken eggs, you know, and it's like, so they have that, and there's all this excitement about the Your Party conference, and they have like this chicken coop with the incubator, and then but they're all empty or something. It's like, oh, it's just us. It's still the same. Again, laugh or cry, people. I'm in the same boat. And then hysterical political party. And this is a sonogram. And it's so the idea that these people there's all this excitement. And I get the excitement, you know, it's like, oh, this is something, seems like it's new. And it's not going to have all the things that held us back, you know, and Corbyn and Sultana. So you have like the wisdom and the youth and this and that. And then so it starts growing like somebody's belly who's having a hysterical pregnancy. And they go to the doctor, and the doctor has to say, yeah, I'm not seeing anything in there. So, you know, again, sometimes you have to try different ways to make your point, but not as but I think maybe Alexander's, sorry, did I not do it? Sorry. I thought I had the cucumber. Anyway, but that was like, I'm sorry, but anybody who was watching the intro reel, there was an AI of a biblical looking man carrying a big cucumber. No, sorry. Anyway, I'll cut that out of the edit.
Yeah. Well, the reference is basically that Corbyn is presenting something which is fundamentally tasteless, cucumber jam, you know?
There you go. Okay. And let's see. Someone wants to tell me something. You have to knock off at 9:00. Okay, sir. This is what I want to do. I'm going to show a little clip, and then we're going to get Alexander's 12 steps, or maybe 6 steps. So when you find yourself wanting to get excited or to hope again about Your Party or Corbyn 3.0, this time he means it. This time it's going to happen. Alexander's going to go through some tips and tricks to help ground you and to fight off going what he would say is down the same cul-de-sac yet again. So I'm going to share my screen and play that little video. Oh, no, I don't want to do that. Sorry. One time I did accidentally end a stream halfway through. It was with Nina Power, and that was a bummer. Okay, so share screen. Let's see. Hopefully this works. Okay, I'm gonna go like this.
Not to run it, not to control it, not 800,000 people have signed up to join in that. 800,000 people who want to see something different. The process that we're going through at the moment has been, you're obviously aware of it, quite difficult over the last few days, but I am absolutely determined this party will be founded. This party will have its founding conference in November. This party will be open, democratic, and grassroots based, and will be a party that enthuses, excites, and mobilizes people in their community to achieve a better thing in their community, and will be a real alternative to the false offer and the lies and the racism of Nigel Farage, Reform, and the far right within our society. We need an organization to do that. The process...
crowd goes wild.
And the process that's going on at the moment, despite what some people have discussed endlessly on social media is such a blessing and such a curse at the same time, isn't it? Is that the Independent Alliance group of MPs, Zara Sultana, myself, Ayub Khan, Shaukat Adam, and Adnan Hussain, are together organising not to run it, not to control it, not to direct it, merely to facilitate it. And we have a team of...
All right.
God, he's so
sounds like a recipe for a whole lot of nothing. But maybe I'm too cynical. Anything you want to say about this lovely about Jeremy's forceful rhetoric?
You want to dive in there?
I think I fell asleep. You better.
well, I mean, I covered most
still
of it.
Got it.
He's as exciting as ever. Well, look, we covered this earlier to a degree, but like this, like, oh, we're not going to be in charge. We're just going to facilitate something. I'm just going to be blunt. This is bullshit.
Yeah, been there, done that. Yeah.
Before I was a Trotskyite, I was in anarchist groups, okay, and I was in once a non-hierarchical collective, and led by a man who said we shouldn't have leaders, but he was in charge. And this is the thing about this kind of like amorphous nonsense, beloved of social democrats. Like they love to say, "Oh, I'm not in charge. I'm not in charge. You're driving this process forward." But in reality, like the decisions have been made by a small group, like I said before, and like what Corbyn's got in mind is getting together a bunch of very nice people, like I'm sure all the people you saw there, his groupies going wild. They're
going to fight fascism, Alex.
They're out there right now. They're throwing jars of cucumber jam at it. But
and pronoun guides.
They're gonna check that fascist's privilege so hard. But what they will do is have these like talking shops, which is what, again, this is People's Assembly stuff. This is, everybody remember the Enough is Enough campaign with Mick Lynch and Zara Sultana going around telling everybody to vote Labour. Yeah, I remember. It seems to disappear. Enough apparently wasn't enough, because then Keir Starmer got elected and basically carried on most of the same policies that Rishi Sunak had been engaging in. So they loved these talking shops, which are completely controlled by a bureaucracy. And here I'll just go back to the interview myself and Kit Clarenberg did with David Miller, because why I think that's what David Miller has to say is important, and others, including the likes of Phil Bevan, who researched this, is like what you've actually got is a very narrow layer of bureaucrats from the trade unions, and also very shady types who are sort of aligned with British intelligence assets, running all of these different organizations, which all overlap with each other, which all basically define what this thing called the left is, and which are sort of setting the policy agenda for your party, and who are run by, as I said, about a small clique, which Corbyn is surrounded with and will not leave. He insists on these people being in place to run everything. So here's the question: is he just?
They know how he likes his tea and takes his.
Yes.
You know how he likes his.
Well, when you found somebody who makes a really nice cup of tea, then you just don't want to get rid of them, even if they are working for MI5, allegedly. But here's the point: like, if he keeps making the same bad personnel decisions, surrounding himself with people who run these organizations which define what the left is, which are run bureaucratically by a small group who again have very dubious connections, then what role is he playing? And this is where I'll get to your point about like how you should people should assess this correctly. Don't let your desperation overwhelm you. Like look at Corbyn's actual record. Did he mobilize the working class or not? No, when he was Labour Party leader. Did he empower the membership of the Labour Party, which at one point reached 600,000 allegedly? No, he did not. Did he enable them to dispose of people who were Corbyn's avowed enemies? No, he did not. He defended those enemies. And now he surrounds himself with the same people who made all those decisions 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago. So that's not a mistake. That in my view is the action of a man who knows what his role is. And his role is to principally, as you were saying, provide jobs for the boys and some girls and some people who don't know what they are, and to secure basically the left bureaucracy, which is who really he speaks for and represents. And if you look at his reign in the Labour Party and the mess that's already being made in your party, the only way you can actually conclude an analysis like that is that Corbyn himself is not, as that Haas guy was saying, the man who had, was within 200 votes of socialism or something.
The natural leader of the left in the United Kingdom.
Leader of the left. But in a sense, that's right, because this is the left. This tortured bureaucratic mess is the British left. This anti-working class nonsense is the British left. So in that sense, yes, he is the perfect leader of it, but I don't think that's what Haas had in mind. So if you actually do an analysis, you actually think this through and don't get blinded by your own desperation, and a desperation is understandable given where we are, then you can only conclude that this is a con game, because it is. And you cannot, don't be afraid to draw the conclusion that the current left as it stands is a joke and needs to be got rid of, because at least then you can liberate yourself from the plague of false hope and false dawns that afflicts people.
Thank you. Laura, do you want to say anything about any of that, or anything else on or around this topic?
No, I've been lulled into a stupor by Corbyn's powerful speech making. I guess it would be nice to end on a slightly more hopeful note, like,
oh well.
at the end of the day, politics doesn't just happen in the ballot box. It's I do think it's important to engage. I mean, like, I feel like the second you have a go at your party, people come out the woodwork and start accusing you of you do nothing and you just stand in the sidelines criticizing and you don't have a plan, and it's like, well,
yeah, and I'm just like, I'm sorry that I said something bad about your political crush.
People are emotional about it, fair enough, because they're like, I had hope, and now you're kind of crushing it. But the point is, class struggle it goes on regardless of, if Reform wins the election in 2026, a class struggle continues, and anti-racist work and all the rest of it continues. And I think people need to stop with this. This is our one opportunity to stop fascism. It's kind of the same as we've got smaller pro-independence parties here in Scotland going, 2026 is the independence election. It's our last chance. It's like, stop saying that. Don't say that, because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy in a way. All you're doing is was giving your enemies the ability to, well, that was your chance, and you blew it. So now you're going to have to put up with this forever.
Yeah.
No, we don't. But like, I don't necessarily agree. Like for me, I feel like I'm not an academic. I haven't done enough reading. I need to do a lot more. But the way I see it, whether you want, a revolution next year, whether you want that to happen and to overthrow the system completely, whether you want to return to social democracy, or whether your, main thing is just to break apart the British, the Union, and have a future for Scotland, what you need to do is the same. You have to organize, you have to campaign, and the demands are the same. You try to claw back a little bit of power and a little bit of dignity from capital in the interest of people, and that is how you build people's sense of being able to actually achieve something and being engaged.
Political education,
there is no substitute for that, and it's grueling, boring work that doesn't come with a lot of plaudits, and occasionally you find someone that has a bit of power or a bit of a platform that will lend it to you, but at the end of the day there is no substitute for class struggle, and that's what we all need to keep at.
All right, so I'm gonna, just to wrap up here, I'm gonna say that I don't think it's to go with the morbid symptom, I don't think it's a stillbirth. I think it's a phantom pregnancy. So all this enthusiasm and buildups, but then it's like, it's just the same old, but a little bit of, it's called your party. But from what I gathered from David Miller. Jeez. Again, I'll add that clip on here when I in the editing, so people can go and go and check that out on Decline and Fall. It's very interesting. I found myself having to chart things out on a piece of paper. Anyway, it's kind of like, a cliche, old wine, new bottle, that this is nothing new. And we're getting everybody so excited, and they think that there's something about ready to be birthed, but it's really just going to be kind of like, hi, same old, but slightly different. So until we're able to, in terms of what Alexander said and then Laura said, we're going to keep on, you're going to find yourself over and over again, either in going between denial, arguing, anger, bargaining, and depression, rather than trying to accept the situation that we're in, which doesn't mean, like Laura was getting at, I think, you just say, F it, whatever, but you realize that you just, whether it be housing or this or that, if you have an issue focused party or a more comprehensive communist or socialist party, like the one that Alexander's a member of, that he can talk about when he signs off, what we have to try to get out of is not spending time and energy, especially bringing younger people in or people who haven't been political in, to have it quashed again, to have it end up in the same place. And I think that's what's really important with what Alexander's also said, that you got to try to, everybody can be wrong and everybody's partially sided, but try to be as honest as possible with the situation as it is, to be able to reach acceptance about where we are, where the left is, whether it be in the UK or England or Scotland or my crazy country, to have an acceptance of that the left is as much, if not more, part of the problem than whatever is going on the so-called right, is what I would say. And on that note, anything you want to, we have 6 minutes before we have a hard break. And I'll turn it over to you two to say or plug or whatever it is you want. And then we'll say adieu to Alexandra and Laura, but it's not bye forever. It's until we meet again. Hopefully we're in Scotland. I'm going to get there someplace, because again, my mother's maiden name was Wallace. So I hope that helps me from getting kicked out of the country. I can be like, let me show you my 23andMe. Anyway.
There we go. You will be allowed to
Farage. Yeah. And I want my birthright. I want a house. Okay, go ahead.
Well, we'll have to get that mass council house building program off the ground then.
Any day now.
Just to conclude, I mean, like what Laura said is absolutely correct, which is that class struggle isn't something that gets turned on and off. It's a constant. It's It's a battle that is waged by the ruling class against the working class constantly, and the working class finds ways to resist constantly. And that doesn't hinge upon, you know, any parliamentary savior or not. That, as you said, that goes on no matter what. So what needs to be done really is that the working class's awareness of itself as a class needs to be drastically improved. The reason why people get sucked up into like the performance act of Yaxley Lenin enabled by Elon Musk, etc., or voting for reform is because, as you said, this is the explanation that is given to them by like all of the different media sources that they listen to, both established and so-called and fake alternative. And what used to happen, which is like through the trade unions and through like the old Communist Party, flawed though it was, there used to be people who were out there in a serious way in communities and workplaces being able to present alternatives to people and being able to mobilize people around core sets of demands. Now, if you do that now, and people actually won something and could see a real tangible victory for themselves in their own lives, in their workplace or their communities, then the words of like a Farage or a Yaxley Lenin would lose their impact, because fundamentally that's the politics of despair. Because these people's only program is kick them out, which by the way they won't do. But that's another story for your immigration episode, Tara. But it is a politics of pure despair. And if people start to believe that they, as a collective, as a community, as a workplace, as a class, can win something, then that changes the dynamic. It is in the ruling class's interest to make sure that working class politics means racism. And therefore it is inexcusable for leftists to agree with that, which is what a lot of the people associated with like the hierarchy of the British left do say. So there's no reason to be like to all into despair. It means you have to realistically assess what is actually required. And what is actually required is that you have to go out and talk to a lot of people who are going to be difficult to talk to, who are going to have all kinds of views about all kinds of things that are all over the political map. And unless you're prepared to do that, well, then you might as well pack up and go home, or maybe become an official of the TUC.
Thank you, Alexander. Laura.
Yeah, I think
it could be about the housing thing too. Whatever. It's your 2 minutes.
Yeah, I mean,
that's what you want, girl. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're at a point, especially in Britain, everywhere in the West, at least, or that I'm aware of, where making basic social democratic demands really looks like radical revolutionary action, which is why I say that, you know, it's the same thing. So, yeah, for us, like the getting the women out of the hotels and the raising awareness of the homelessness crisis is how we combat the racism stuff. You know, it's part and parcel. At the end of the day, they are reform, etc., are winning because they're making this like shortage of resources argument. And it's cutting through because people are looking around and going, well, yeah, because I can't get a house, or my friend can't get a house, or I can't get a job, you know, and instead of making the point, you know, that we need to be combating the rise of like slave wage labor that's going on and the blatant lack of housing and services, people are just going, no, the problem is that everyone woke up one day and decided to be a fascist, and it doesn't work. So yeah, if you actually present actual explanations to people and actual solutions, and I think in Scotland we're in a uniquely we have the luxury that we are a small country, we're a very resource rich country, and we could actually solve a lot of these issues really easily. You know, and if you can actually put that to people, you also show up the Yaxley Lenins, etc., for the frauds that they are, because it shows that they don't actually care about presenting solutions to any of these problems. So yeah, that's
yeah. And a big hint is like if Elon Musk shows up at your Take Your Country Back rally, you may want to give it a think. Just gonna throw that out there. I hear the dog in the background, so I hear you, puppy. I hear you. Comrades, thank you very much. I really appreciate this. I always learn a lot and enjoy my time with you individually or together, which is, lovely to see. Yeah, so thank you very much. And hopefully maybe you'll come back for the immigration episode once I figure out how to approach that and whatnot in a, I don't know, a sensitive but direct manner. Anyway, thank you so much. You guys, Alexander's a bigger draw than I am, so I'm guessing a lot of the people who are watching are on his account. So, but if you're not, if you're my people, my peeps, or or the Morbid Symptoms peeps, I will in the video description have links to Laura and Alexander and all that good stuff, as well as the interview we mentioned twice with Professor Miller. They really got into the kind of the interesting characters, anarchists and Zionists and whatnot, that seem to be always around whatever is happening on the quote unquote left. Thank you very much. See you next time.
Thank
Bye.
you, Tara.
Thank you, Tara.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye now.
My kids stayed upstairs, so it's a miracle. Bye. All right. Oh, I'm big. I don't want to be that big. Let's see. Can I be smaller? All right. Okay. Please do like and subscribe and share. I'm on. What am I on? Rumble, X, Substack, and whatnot. And my Tara Van Dyke X is currently suspended because somebody false reported me for being an imposter. So I guess I was impersonating myself, which is actually a great false report because it takes forever for X or the AI or whoever to look at the account and be like, no, I'm not impersonating myself. So if anybody wants to follow me on Morbid Symptoms, that'd be great. Please do like and subscribe. If you have any ideas for future shows, books that we can review, guest topics, etc., or anybody out there want to come and be a co-host, please let me know. This is season 2, so I'm trying to, build on momentum and have 1 or 2 streams a week in addition to Substack follow-ups, written essays. All right, so I see that, let's see, Alexander left and the comments went, okay, no, he didn't. Okay, so this is what I'm going to do. Laura and Alexander had to go. I'm going to take a 10-minute break, and then I'm going to come back and go through and put the question, any questions or comments in the chat that aren't like, telling me that, that aren't about my appearance or anybody's appearance, or aren't, just trolling. I don't have to agree with them, but I will put them up on the screen. And if I can answer them, I will. Unfortunately, if people put their comments or questions were for Alexander and Laura specifically, I can, kind of try to pretend I know what they said. But anyway, I'm going to take a 10-minute break, and then I'm going to go back on and go through the questions and comments. So at least they'll be put on the screen. And if anybody wants to stay around for that, who wants me to respond to what they said or asked, please do stay on board. For those of you who are not interested in that, please do like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. So I'm going to put up a 10-minute back in 10 minutes. And I'll be back in 10 minutes to go through the questions and comments. Thank everybody for tuning in, and see you in a minute. Oh, right. Hello, people. We're back to go over the comments and questions. Let me turn off this banner. Hide, show. There we go. All right, let's see. Let me just look here, see what we have. Let's see. Hi, Jenny Lynn. Let's see. Question. Bishi Barnaby. Let me put this up here. Let's go from top to bottom, or bottom to top. It feels like in the UK, there's been significant process towards defeating the gender identity nonsense. From the outside, it looks like there might be in the USA too. What's going on with that? Oh, Bishi Barnaby, that is a big question. Well, yes and no. It seems that there was a Supreme Court case in the UK that was brought by Women's Scotland and others that the court clarified that in the, I think it's the Equal Amendments Act, that woman means adult human female. And so that government, that people have, that's the legal definition. And so it's not meant that people who go and get a quote unquote gender recognition certificate, that doesn't mean that you can, that organizations and the state and whatnot can just not kind of throw away out women's sex-based rights and sex-based spaces, but then again, it's enforcement. There's pushback on that. And also, as we see with, what would you say? It's kind of like the Zara Satana and other people who've dedicated and have dug in so much on the transgender thing. When they will be able to ever slowly back away from that, I don't know. But I have to have faith in the fact that most people, that the silent majority and also the loud minority is quite aware that your sex doesn't change, that a man doesn't become a woman in any way at all besides, by stating that they are, or saying they're trans, or they have a feeling inside or whatever, that if you're male, you're always going to be male. If you're female, you're always going to be female. I think most people probably understand that, but they've been, it was, for the longest time, it was difficult to say it without being called a transphobe and all that. That's turning around. But when clearly so far, Zara Sultana has not gotten the memo. So we'll see. I think personally, the tide has turned in the UK, especially with more people getting speaking out, saying, enough of this. It's not transphobic, whatever that means, to call a man and a woman, and to be against the experimental kind of Dr. Genderstein stuff that I call it. But we'll see. It's not done yet. There's still pushback. There's people who are saying we're not going to accept, we're not going to implement, like places that have the gender neutral bathrooms. They're not going to go back to women and men because apparently that's not inclusive, which is odd since everyone's, male or female. So we'll see. But it's quite clear that so far there's still a lot of people, at least in the professional center or left, that are still with trans rights or human rights and trans women or women and all that type of big sister gender speak. Let's see. Reworded samurai. Here's one, a Gramscian frame. Gary Stevenson appears to be making inroads into broader British society in a way that Michael Hudson or Richard Wolff never did in the US. Why is that, and will it matter? I'll have to look into this. I'm aware of Michael Hudson and Richard Wolff's work, but I'll have to admit that I'm not familiar with Gary Stevenson. So I'll have to make a note of that and get back to you on that, Samurai, or have Alexander if he's aware. But I will note Gary Stevenson's name down. Let's see. Let me go up to the beginning now. Hello, everybody. We're just going through comments and questions so that people took the time to comment or ask a question. I will get on this screen. I just have to go up. Okay. Let's see. Free Marxist says the left that is unable or unwilling to win back the red wall and north from reform is dead on arrival. Yeah. I would agree with, I have nothing against, I would agree with that. Let's see. Sheila says great news for the Greens. I guess the fall or the stillbirth or the hysterical pregnancy of the Your Party. I like the hysterical political party analogy. I'll go with that. Is this just to troll the left? Well, Dan Wilson, I don't know. It depends on what you mean by the left. If it's to troll the identity politics, that the left is about centering the marginalized, whoever that happens to be at the moment, then perhaps. But if it's about the left in terms of making a break between that, making kind of a sectarian split between the class-focused left, the left that's about building up working class power, or you want to call it the dictatorship of the proletariat, to be able to replace, the dictatorship of capital that we're now on, then yeah, because you're certainly not getting any of that from the Green Party or the Your Party is basically trying to go back to the golden age of the social welfare state that, for reasons of financial capital and others, Alexander says is a fantasy. Jerry, hi Jerry. Jerry's saying it's worth it. It's not just to troll the left. Yeah, it's a Marxist, maybe a critique of the faux left. I don't want to say that. It's hard because there's so many things. Like now, when someone says the left, you really have to ask them what they mean. Or the right is a bit more concrete. Or a feminist, because you have feminists who think that trans women are women. If you're not for trans rights, then you're not a feminist. And you have feminists who say, well, if you think that, then you're not a feminist. And you have feminists who are all for, that are Zionist feminists. And you have feminists that are anti-Zionist feminists. So what does it mean really to say they're a feminist? If you say you're on your left, I'd have to ask, it's kind of like, what do you mean by that? Because there's the Jeremy Corbyn, Zara Sultana left. There's the Worker Party left. And then in my country, I'm an American, so where I come from, you have the Squad and AOC and the DSA and the Democratic Party. Is that the left? The right thinks anybody that's not right is all the left. So they see no distinction between, Pelosi and Schumer and, Antifa, the big scare going on now. Hugh Keenan, Lauren Tara spearheading the People's Revolt using their cute commie charms, whilst Alex sits in a corner staring grumpily at passers-by. Well, I don't know about that. But perhaps. Itching to think, trans on top, have you gone mad? Are you asking me? You should ask Zara Sultan that, because she, if you have to center the most marginalized, and she would probably say that that men who want to pretend they're women and women who want to pretend they're men are the most marginalized, and they would be the front and center. Marius Trotter, hi everyone. Let's see. So Huda liked my metaphor. Thank you. Great interview. Thanks. Kind of an interview. It's a discussion, but yeah. Also an interview. Let's see. Mary's Trotter, not dead yet. I'm getting better. I think I'll go for a walk. Okay. Good. Hugh Keenan again. Lucky Craig had the honor of spending time in a Scottish dungeon. Nathan, whenever I hear your party, I think whose party? Yeah. Or it's my party and I'll cry if I want to. It's a nice blank slate. You can project all kinds of things on it, and as long as you make the Zara Sultana cut. The Workers' Party with grand pianos could be. Let's see. Alex facepalm lol. Yeah. Terrifying naivete. Hugh Keenan and Jeremy they trust. Have these people no memory of Jeremy's betrayal as labor leader or of members of elected officials? Maybe not. Or my guess is that probably like with whenever you have a kind of political party or any kind of movement that's about around one or two people, then the group becomes about protecting them or excusing them. So I know Trump's another great example. And it's not just Trump, Democrats do this too in the United States, that nothing's ever his fault. Yeah. So it's the media's after him, or it's the deep state insiders or the neocons, and they're able, if your approach is to find a way that someone you believe in or like or identify with is not the problem that somebody else is, I think it's just kind of human nature, unfortunately, to make excuses for them. But then again, it's like, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me 3 times, then I just want to be tricked. I must like it some way. Hi, David. Myers Trotter. Yes, every socialism conference I've been to in the US as well, same experience. Yeah. Lots of talk and raising of voices and yeah. Which I obviously I also like to talk, but at a certain point, it's just, it's you have to realize that maybe we're hamsters that need the wheel. Galloway has no principles at all. I don't say no. I don't know enough about that to get into that. I get it's hard to know what's being strategic and what's just opportunism. But I was suspicious when he started tweeting about being concerned about the trans community. Not because you can't be concerned about people are being targeted, just because I think that's a made up thing, because of course we're all men or women, and no matter what you do, you can't change that. So I think it's important to be honest about that issue. Comrade Tara talks a lot of good sense, and I love her gynecological metaphor. Thank you, David. I was really, once I got on that, I thought, okay, am I going too far? Because I was thinking, there's miscarriage, but that's after 24 weeks. And then I was like, and then I remembered hysterical pregnancy. And that's great because men can also have that. So it works. Let's see. Alistair Page McGill, guess it's going to be fascism either way. Then, yeah, I mean, that's the boogeyman. Because it's certainly in the States, it's like, what is it? With the Charlie Cook thing being weaponized and them trying to start another religious revival, Christian nationalism in the States, some people are, or at least they've had some, parties. We'll see what happens with that. But it's this idea that, the radical left wants to kill you and they want to do this and that, the radical left. And it's so hilarious because there hasn't been, I don't know what they're talking about. And so that's what you have to ask them what they mean. But I know what they mean. It's ideological warfare. But there hasn't been an organized, potent left in terms of like a class-focused, potent left in the United States since, before World War II, probably. So it's this idea that, it's this phantom in their head, but it works if people, think that the left wants to kill them and hates them and wants to, trans all their kids and all that stuff. It works. And on the other side, it's, but of course, on the other side, you do have more actual material evidence of, with the whole thing that's going on with ICE in the States. And Alexander's mentioned this before, that everything that's going on to ICE, them trying to be big push to recruit as many people as ICE as possible, is that once they round up, once they get people used to either actual undocumented immigrants or not being rounded up, who are they going to round up next and put in all these holdment, these containment facilities that they have? And then Trump's tweeting about Venezuela has to take all our, criminal illegal immigrants. It's just crazy. However, I will note that the Democratic Party, their rhetoric is different. and they seem to be a little less gung-ho, but of course that's internally they're less gung-ho. But when it becomes to U.S. foreign policy, there's really no difference between Democrats and Republicans. And of course, I would push back, not that it matters, to say that the Democrats are not left; they're liberals. You know, the liberal side of the bourgeoisie or the duopoly. And you have a lot of other leftists that I think it's the same thing in the UK, that they try to just kind of, they still have this dream that they're gonna shift or reform the Democratic Party. So the DSA is always about getting a seat at the table so they can go to these talk shops and talk about things. And one of their people actually wins their victory for them is when AOC wins a congressional seat. So we'll see, but it's definitely fascism is in season. That's going to be the political thing as everybody's fighting fascists. Let's see. Hukina and your party may possibly be going through the problems that all new parties go through. Yeah, I don't think, but my thing is, I don't think it's a new party. I mean, a rebrand. It's like, when Dylan Mulvaney, to go back to the trans thing, goes from being non-binary to trans, or from trans to non-binary. Is that really a new party? I mean, what's new about it would be the thing. I mean, what is it, are we, this is a common ideological thing or belief thing that whenever something's going on and we're being told that it's new, or we're considering it's new, to step back and be like, is it really new? Is this just an old thing in a new type of clothing or marketing, or vice versa? Are we has something new emerged, but we're so locked into comfortable or old ways of looking at things that we misrecognize something that's new or potentially new. So, but I don't think it's particularly new, but who knows? We'll see. Maybe, I'll have to eat all these words. It's possible. Jerry Jacobs, the boy who cried wolf. Yeah. I mean, we'll see. And I don't want to say that there isn't things can always go fascist, or can go, but what I would say is that if to the degree that fascism is a real possibility, or an increasing fascism, or becomes more normalized, or instrumentalized because of whatever thing we're supposed to be, the Russians are coming, or the radical left is coming, or whoever's coming, the PayPal mafia is coming, that your party is not going to be able to fight fascism, please. That's what I would say. Neither is the DSA in the States. Bernie said that himself. Yeah. Oh, did Bernie say that about not wanting to be? Yeah. I had heard, this is about when I had heard, and I thought Chris Hedges said this. Well, he's the one I heard it from, that Bernie did not want to do, was not going to be a Ralph Nader. He wasn't going to risk. So when people were pushing him or thinking he might run as an independent, when they railroaded his primary bid for Clinton, first with Hillary Clinton and then with Joe Biden, that there was no way that he was going to do that. He didn't want to be held responsible for Trump, for bringing fascism to the States via Trump, which if you look at Trump's first administration, not really too much different from what happened before, but his tone and rhetoric and style were different. But this time around, we'll see. And also it's the people he has around him. There's some very sketchy dudes and ladies. Reform ran last time to ensure the Tory vote was split, to ensure Starmer won. Well, that certainly is what happened. So maybe again, if you're playing the longer game and you have to decide, who do we want to, which party and which leader of that party do we want to have be empowered to take all the blame, or to have to do all these decisions that are not going to be popular. And maybe Keir Starmer was like, oh, I'll do that. Who knows? Let's see. Socialism means social democracy for the vast majority of people not educated in Marxism. Yep, I would agree with that. It's softening the edges. Yeah, so less regressive tax policy, more social safety net, this type of thing. Which, you know, I can understand people, especially when you look at what we have now, and how those things in countries where they were achieved have been whittled down. I can understand people wanting to go to that, or seeing that as something motivating. Matt Volmer, Alex McKay has really opened my eyes about the nice man Corbyn in the cucumber gym. Yeah, he's like, you know, yeah, just don't let the demeanor fool you. And also, you know, how we look at people we want to hang out with, or be our kid's godfather or something like that, and who's going to be able to be the leader of an opposition party or a militant left push, then you are going to look at different qualities. And him being nice and soft-spoken and, you know, caring about all this stuff and not wanting to, you know, and again, I don't know how he is, you know, in his mind or at home, but it's kind of like what makes, and also sometimes you need the asshole. Yeah, you need someone who can drop the hammer sometimes, or who's willing not to be liked, in order for the, you know, whatever you want to call it, the greater good, or to be able to move us further along the path we're trying to get along. Yeah, let's see. Exactly. Corbyn's a social democrat, welfare capitalism. Stephen Hartley, I used to love those rose-tinted glasses for Corbyn. Wasn't paying attention hard enough. Yeah, well, you know, I mean, and we're human. It's like, you know, I get why people like him. I get, like, I felt the burn, you know, and not as strong the second time, but I also had to be like, and of course, with the gender crazy stuff, that first, and then people's reactions to October 7th and the subsequent genocide campaign really has been a solvent. Yeah. So now I'm like, Bernie, I have no problem being like, Bernie, no. Jeremy Corbyn, I'm not feeling that. And I think that if he were to win, that there'd be a rhetoric change. But again, for all the reasons that Alex has gone through better than I could, he's not gonna turn any kind of ship around. Because even if he really wanted to, and even if he was the greatest guy around, Alex, I think, would say, and I would agree, he doesn't have a proper understanding of the situation or the character, or whatever you want to call it, cojones, to do it. Which also is quite clear by the people who orbit around him. Corbyn is just a scumbag. I'm grateful for Alex and the CPGB ML for helping me realize that. Yeah. Bitter pills to swallow. Corbyn a scumbag? Harsh. A smug headmaster running a slag heap school seems more apt. Well, let's see. Hallelujah. Let's see. Alistair Page. About 15 more minutes before I have to sign off here and make sure my kids are going to bed. So Sultana is telling people there's no place for you in your party if you're social conservative. Yeah. There's a litmus test. If you don't agree with trans women or women in every way that matters, your party is not for you. Ironically enough. Todd, what does pro-trans even mean? It means that you swallow the Kool-Aid, that if someone says, to quote Nina Turner from the US, a woman is whoever says they are. So if you go with that we just declare if we're male or female now. Maybe we'll also declare our race when, I can be black when it helps. I can be white when it helps. I can be Asian or Chinese when it helps. that's really race, but yeah, our height, my weight, all kinds of things. Why not? Yeah, so you have to be that, and you have to be inclusive, and you have to be very, you have to make sure that there's no friction for someone who wants to carry out a fantasy that they're actually a woman when they're a man, or a man when they're a woman, or both or neither. Who knows? Let's see. Amari L, anti-working class. Daniel Price, intentional own goal from Sultana. Maybe, yeah. I mean, I think this is an interesting point that there could be a reason why she kind of keeps your party fairly niche, fairly kind of NGO-ish, or, that to just have enough to where you can exert some influence on labor. Maybe that's the extent of their the honest extent of their ambition, rather than, she sent out a letter the other day after the whole membership debacle, saying we have to do this. It's, there's no other choice. We have to do this, and it's just kind of like, all right. If that was the case, if she really felt that the only way we're going to stave off fascism in the UK is through your party, then she wouldn't be making these kinds of divisions, saying not you, not you, not you, not you, only this people who say and think the same way as I do, that make me comfortable, you we want. I mean, these are contradictory. It's like, is this like, are we on the cusp of fascism, and everybody that the right doesn't like, or that Tony Robinson doesn't like, being rounded up and carted off, or not? Because if we are, then you shouldn't give a shit about this other stuff. First things first. But it's the same thing in the Democrats, you could say, or the DSA, which is even more sad as far as last I checked. Then, well, this is also pretty sad. Same thing. Half 6 one way, half dozen the other. Sunbather, can't talk anymore. Despite her organizational failings, Zara comes across as way more firm and decisive than Corbyn. Her for staying for social conservatives is a solid principle to stand on. Yeah, but it's not one if you want to build if you're about working class politics or class politics, then that's silly, because a lot of working class people have socially conservative views on some things. So it depends on what you want to do. What your main objectives are. So she can certainly have that view, of course, that's fine. And not, she needs my permission to have it. But if your goal is to defeat fascism, then saying right off the bat that this party isn't for anybody that has socially conservative views, I find fairly contradictory. But that's just my take on that. But yeah, it's fine if that's what she wants to do. Then she shouldn't call the party your party, even in the interim, because it's obviously not everybody's party. Yeah. It's people who agreed to a checklist of liberal or progressive pieties, of pieties du jour would be my take on that. But yeah, again, I haven't been following her that closely, so maybe she is firm and decisive, but it's easy to be firm and decisive when you're just making statements. We'll see how it pans out. Kendi was the greatest voice of resurrecting the color line. Oh, okay, yeah. I was thinking, yeah. It is odd how for a while there was a moment in time, I remember how we were encouraged to not essentialize race. The whole Martin Luther King thing, content of the character, this, whatever. And then around somewhere, maybe it was right around Occupy Wall Street, when it became in earnest, all of a sudden it became like race is essential. It's, it's super important. And then there was all this focus on, again, celebrating the culture, inclusivity. There's Black math, there's Black this, there's Indigenous science, all these things, which neither here nor there. But it became, they went from de-essentializing race and focusing on the historical and political aspect of it, and people who, the group, to not make it a rock solid thing politically, to this essentializing of it and making it the focus. Yeah, that if that the left is about anti-racism, not just being not racist, but being anti-racist and looking at yourself and how you're racist and how you can use your privilege and talk, all this type of stuff, this kind of liberal, how I see it, kind of parlor game, because it's a way of, it's kind of interesting that the people, so I'm a white person, so if I'm in this thing and I'm apologizing for my privilege and acknowledging all the terrible things that have happened and all this stuff, and I'm essentializing someone and particularizing them, it's like that in a way is reproducing the hierarchy. Yeah. So it's an odd thing. And of course, the fact that it obscures the class differences, which when you look at material conditions, tend to be as more pronounced than racial ones. And one of the things that we talked about, not tonight, but on earlier episode, is that if you look at, I'm assuming it's probably similar in the UK, but I'm familiar with the US data, that if you look at the income and wealth of Black families, white families, Latino families, whatever, you'll see that the first 80% is quite the same, flat, and then it just swoops up, starts going up exponentially at around the 90% or percentile. So what that shows is that the class wealth difference is very much more than any racial one. So the Black bourgeoisie or the Latino bourgeoisie is not going to help the other ones so much. And when you focus on the racial wealth gap or the gender wealth gap, all that other kind of gets pushed aside, and you don't have a class politics anymore. You have an identity politics, grievance politics. Let's see. Emin Pudama. I know this is old news, but I found out today that the Gray Zone outed Philosophy Tube as an intelligence operation to keep the left synonymous with woke. Not surprised. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to know what just what they capitalized on and what was cooked up in a dark room someplace. So yes, if you're an institution or organization or individual who's that's about suppressing and demonizing and making a joke out of the left, class, to weaken the class, any kind of class-based politics or consciousness from getting off the ground, then of course all this stuff is great. And other people have then we're arguing over about do you have to be the difference between anti-racist and not racist, or gender and all this other stuff. And it's also, I know that some people have been, I can't remember the name now, but we also know that the Frankfurt School and the places that produced what now is called Western Marxism, along with postmodernism and all that stuff, were also funded by a lot of organizations that had a lot of interest in a left or opposition that was not focused on class politics that much. Let's see, Matt. I really like to hear McKay's full experience and opinion on George Galloway. He's talked a bit about that before, because I know that their party, Alex's party, initially was working with the Workers' Party, but that didn't last long. So, and I don't know if he's had a show on that. I can ask him, and I'll put it in the notes. Matt Vollmer, then the proletariat is not marginalized, but the core of the working class. Marginalized groups are specifically that and cannot be the core of a social evolution. It's just material logic. I would agree with that. Yeah. Let's see. Neither Tommy fans or Souter seem to say much about proxy wars that create refugees. Yeah, isn't that interesting? Yeah, the push and pull factors are not what they want to hear, because it's a nice, and again, give credit where credit is due. If you can keep the story simple and the enemy clear, or the what you is like, what do we want? We want our country back. We don't like these demographic shifts. Islam is coming to get us. Whatever it is, halal. I don't know. It spreads the meat. I don't know what's going on. To keep it simple, yeah. We just want them out, and they're taking. Okay. They don't want to get into the push and pull factors of where migrants are coming from, and where they're being pushed from, and where they're being pulled to. And that's also in the States, or the right would say it's just it's those darn South American and Central American countries that are just sending us their bad people. That's what it is. And obviously there are countries that are interested in reparations, not reparations, sorry, it could be that too, but remittances. Yeah, that a lot of money that comes in from people that go and work elsewhere and send part of their paycheck home, which also does not have a very good developmental effect on the sending country. But for sure, immigration is on. I think focusing on is it racism or not racism misses a lot of what is behind, especially large migration numbers or peak or spikes. Let's see a few more. Let's see. Marius, Alistar, what define? Okay, I'm sorry, you're talking to each other. Let's see. Okay, I'm just going to see if there's anything more here. I thought I would have time to go through more. Let's see. Yes, the lettuce one. Okay. This is be the last comment or slash question. Why talk about the left and the West when it's hijacked by extreme religious hedonists that are servants and slaves of the bourgeoisie, like the Green parties, which are in danger to the humankind, for example? Well, to take it back, I mean, to there's talks about. I know I've heard more of this in the U.S. context and the UK context about making a distinction between leftists and serious Marxist, communist, socialist, whatever name you want to say. That there needs to be, and I would agree with that. There needs to be an epistemological, to use a fancy word, break. Yeah, that. You can that we have the progressives or the liberal progressives or whatever's the progressive authoritarians, whatever they are, and the liberals and the Democrat. I know that liberal means something a bit different here. When I say liberal, I first think of Democrats, although I know obviously that economic liberalism is something that both Republicans and Democrats subscribe to, as is everyone in the States for a long time in power. But that the left is when I say the left, I mean like a class-focused politics that's focused on building up whatever you want to call it, proletariat, working class political capacity and knowledge to be able to take over as many levers of the state as possible from the dictatorship at capital, basically, going towards that. And it, peaks and valleys, rise and falls, revisions, all these types of things. But that there's a left around that. And if you have that core thing, then all this other stuff becomes more manageable, because that's the core driving force of your politics, both intellectual and practical. And then if you want, you can, on issues, on issue-based politics, you can pair up with whoever you want. But yeah, this house is divided. There's too many contradictions. And the left, at least what goes under the name of the right in the States and here, is a bit more is also riven with contradictions, class contradictions, but at least ideological seems more in sync. So we'll see. And both these things, this focus on fascism, and either the right's out to kill everybody or the left's out to kill everybody, which is just funny in the States or here, is that even people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who for a while was was getting more and more critical. She would say it in America First language, but she was still, the substance of her speech was, she was becoming more and more critical of these wars, of these foreign wars. So, financing Israel and all this, the Ukraine war and all this stuff about we need to take care of our own people. Now, she wasn't obviously talking in a Marxist or left discourse, but she was critical of U.S. foreign policy. I don't think she'd call it imperialism, but she was critical of that. And now about how, when I say America First, I mean this X, Y, and Z, less wars, less money for this, focusing at home, securing our borders, this type of thing. But now the tribe's kind of been rallied, or the crowd's been rallied, because ever since, and we'll see if it holds or not, but ever since they've made hay out of the Charlie Kirk assassination, now, if you look at Marjorie Taylor Greene's tweets, that's gone. It's all about, I want national divorce. We're not safe. You can't even deal with the left. They're out to, they just, they killed our friendly guy and all this stuff. So they're rallying around this kind of, politics of oppression in one hand, or suppression of First Amendment rights in one hand, and a Bible in the other. We'll see how it goes. All right, I wish I could go through more. Thank you so much for tuning in, but I have kids upstairs who I need to make sure are heading the right direction. Please do like and subscribe. I will try to go through more of these and touch upon them later. Maybe in a follow-up Substack article where I'm able to flesh out more what we talked about this evening. Please do like and subscribe. Thank you very much. And I will drop this down, and I'll put my banner up where you can see where you can follow me. Although right now my Tara Van Dyke 7 on X is suspended because someone turned me in for being on authenticity, which means either they said I'm impersonating myself, or I'm like some sort of porn bot or something, which I am neither. So I have filed an appeal, but I'm sure that tending to suspended accounts is not a high priority at X, and I have to get past the AI. So I'm hoping that my Tara Van Dyke account comes back on, but I have a Morbid Symptoms account for the podcast and the Substack. So if you could, if you want to follow me there, that will be great. So we'll see if my personal account is free, if I'm able to prove to X that I'm actually not impersonating myself. It's funny. Okay, so thanks again. I'm going to drop off here and put on, where is it at? I have to be careful. And I'm sorry, I was using Cool Music because I found this site that said non-copyright, or that you can use it, but apparently you can only use it once. If you use it more than once, then YouTube is like saying, oh, it's a copyright thing. So unfortunately, at the moment, I am limited to the built-in tunes of SoundStream, or StreamYard. All right, take care, everyone. See you next time.